LA? Oh,
I deserve the credit for it. That's literally how it happened.
oh, good. That's
My
awesome.
tweet.
Might as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought it was small.
Just small.
I'm getting right now.
All right.
I'm sorry? Yeah, this is high now. Yeah, I live in LA. Born and raised. So I'm very happy because it's finally like the first time where I don't have to travel to actually go out to the shows.
Yeah.
Sorry, we don't let ladies in.
Hey, Robert. So you're gonna hang out to that drive, or? Okay, I thought you left, I thought that was it. If you ever need that, you can just.
Testing sound, testing 1, 2, 3. Sorry for being loud, everybody.
You right? That's the second time someone almost
Nobody
fell
saw
off
that.
I saw it. Yeah, they just flipped back up.
But I have it on the disc. It's weird, because I just can't drive in.
Because they don't have that problem in crypto.
That was the one that aired during the show. Okay, okay.
Can I just find out that three? Let's try it every Friday.
I made it.
TMA meter, yeah. Yes, got it all. Okay. All right, thanks. You got it? I'm good. You good? Yeah.
Hi. Oh yes, of course. How are you? Good to see you again. Good stuff today, man. I'm sure you guys were busy with the good stuff in there. Yeah.
Great job. You can sign every text with $1.
Guys, we're gonna have mics on each side. Those are more for recording, not in. So if you have a question, most of you know the drill. Just say your name and where you're from, and then I'll just kind of point to you. So just try to catch my eye. I'll try to catch your eye if you have questions. But you don't have to keep your hand up the whole time. Like just when.
I'm just gonna do one of these.
Yeah, whatever you want.
Just point.
Whatever you want.
No finger
I'll
guns.
try to catch you. Yeah.
That's so awesome. Because you're not a dad.
What now? Yep. Yeah, I got it. Yep, it works. drag you for it, Denise.
Tell Sean that I do not fear him. Is there any way that you want me to like move a little bit?
Just a little bit.
Yeah. Sorry, Steph. I'm gonna creep up on your space.
Yeah.
I'm gonna creep in and be like,
This is the official fight for feet.
if I get in the shot, tap me on the shoulder and I'll move.
No, you're good. You're good now.
You don't have a tripod?
I forgot it. Connected.
Oh.
That way you can't take it.
No, we're good. We're good. The shot is perfect. And even if you get into it a little bit, you're
I'm
still.
wondering. I'm thinking of ideas for you really quick. Something that would be plausible.
It's actually good. Great shot. I told people they don't turn away. I'll make it no matter what. The good news about Harry Reid is I had that was not a work. 100% not a work. I have I understand. Proof. I understand. People need your self-permission. I know that there is a point where I can squeeze out. Will be.
Oh, you guys see it?
I got three.
Free check. He doesn't move with those patterns.
No, free check line closes.
You're getting it. You're close. Ooh, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Can't.
Thank you. See, now
Way to do
I kind of hold on.
Actually, that's pretty good. No, no, it's pretty good.
I still get it.
You'll have so much time to see this. Are you staying for So you're leaving Thursday. Oh, you'll have plenty of time. Yeah.
obviously, obviously, if Celtics too good, then they're also going to fall over. They're good. No, Celtics are good. Golden State and six.
I do feel like that. Celtics can't. I don't think Celtics are covered. Yeah, it was like I felt like it was really cool to this.
It's weird that what?
It was rarely cool.
I'm just like, finding out.
Like, Larry Bird
This
never.
night, I'm like, I'm probably
He was always like,
Larry was there, guys.
it's very embarrassing.
Yeah. Okay. That was
The only thing I liked about Celtics having Lonnie Walker just because he just kind of just different. You're live now.
it's muted.
And he had Anderson.
That's your shot. It's from like where to where? What's your shot from like from where to where?
To the bottom of the traffic photo. Top of the table.
You can't see this chair, right? Like this. Yeah. I'm trying to get an idea of what not to like. Okay, so here.
So you can just see her hand there.
Sean's gonna be so pissed.
Best never had. First one. Honestly, Lakers.
I watch hockey all the time. Not honestly, I have
I do now. Oh, nice. I didn't really go on the road. Yeah, makes sense. Especially after that first month on the job, it was like 5 hours. Nice. Yeah. Seattle actually.
That's a long trip.
Oh, he's here.
That's serious.
Got my Calgary Flames hat.
Hey, you're the Blackhawks fan.
No,
Calgary Flames hat Martha Hart just gave me.
Oh, well, that was a little bit too late on that one.
At least I guess.
Okay, hold on, guys.
I mean, they're out. Oilers beat them. What do you?
Well, still, nevertheless, Martha Hart, it was a really nice gift she just gave me.
Yeah, I didn't get anything.
Just as we walked in.
We're gonna start with Dom here.
Dominic D'Angelo from WrestleZone.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Great.
Good show. CM Punk, how does it feel knowing you got the title now and just moving forward with this kind of, almost like a new era for AEW, starting off with you in a way, looking to establish more of the brand, so to speak.
Are we using these? Do I need to talk into this?
These are on?
Do I need to talk
Yeah,
into
no,
this?
it's just for us. It's not
Ah,
information.
great.
Yeah.
Great.
I wish I had my phone so I could see if I have WrestleZone blocked on Twitter.
Very fair.
Yeah, that's a fair thing.
They're good.
What was the question?
So,
We're off
just-
to a rousing start.
Just starting off with winning the title, and then going to just starting kind of like a new regime or a new start for. How's it kind of feel going with this, with the title starting off now?
I don't think this is necessarily a new regime. I think this is just the onward and upward trajectory that AEW has been on for 3 years. You could say with the addition of me, we're doing better, but I look at it as like with the addition of Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole and all the talent that Tony brings in, every day is a step forward, and it doesn't necessarily start with me being the champion. To me, it's a team effort, and I like to say, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. And this is very much a team effort and a team environment backstage. I couldn't do this alone. Obviously, this guy did bring me back to professional wrestling, so all credit to him. It wasn't easy to do, and I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be the champ. I take great responsibility in holding that title, and if I'm the face of AEW, then I'm the face of AEW, and I'm going to do everything I possibly can to not just put more money in my pocket, but his pocket and everybody's pockets backstage, and put on the best possible show every single time I can for all of you.
Cool. Thank you.
Nick?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, a lot of people were talking about the promo exchange you had with. Oh, sorry. A lot of people were talking about the promo exchange you had with Paige leading into Double or Nothing. How it felt like there was some real tension there. Do you feel like you're blending in with this locker room, or do you still feel like you're kind of somebody on the outside trying to find his way in to the regular mix of AEW?
I've grown so wise in my old age that I'll do my best to be as diplomatic as I possibly can with this answer. If there's people backstage that don't like me, it's a minority. And if anybody says that nobody wants me here and nobody likes me, I like to say that nobody's don't like me and nobody's don't want me here. Run with that.
Fair enough.
Danny?
Danny Webster, Las Vegas Sun. You kind of touched on it on Dynamite over 10 years ago with this city. You had the moment that kind of skyrocketed your professional wrestling career. To come back here 10 years, 11 years later, does it feel like a full circle type moment for you, given what happened back then to now?
Yeah, a little bit. I just did. Mark Ramondi interviewed me for ESPN, and I said something that I think a lot of people, obviously, on its face will think is ridiculous. I said I feel like the 7 years I was out of the ring, I didn't feel was wasted. I feel almost that the 10 years that I spent at WWE was wasted, because I feel it is management, owner, booker, whoever's job is to get the most out of all the talent, and I feel that I never was. I reached the potential that I could have, given the limitations they constantly put on me, and I feel here there's no limitations put on myself or anybody, and sky's the limit. So I finally feel like I could reach my potential. So that's what I mean when I say that. Goddamn, I look back at that time and I'm like, you doing? To me, you're always trying to make the most money and put on the best possible show you can. And it felt like 10 years of fighting silly battles and standing on my own dick. And I'm not in the business of trying to stand on my own dick. And I'll say it one more time, I don't do that here. You know, I think everybody here can reach their fullest potential. You know. We have a dentist that works here, right? Because I chipped my teeth at some point.
Very good.
Yeah. Fucking sucks.
There you go.
Hi, Mike Dagger with Lucha Libre Online. Punk, it's been almost
I
9
for
years.
sure got you guys blocked, I'm pretty sure.
Pretty sure you got
Yeah,
blocked? I'm pretty sure you got me blocked.
I'm pretty sure.
Positive.
Yeah,
And
okay.
especially after this question, you probably will like me even less. But,
I haven't answered yet, so, you know.
So, it's been around 9 years since you've been world champion somewhere else again. How do you feel? You seem a little tired, but...
Well, the show is like fucking 12 hours. You're not tired? Come on.
I'm tired as hell. Y'all's match was like 2 hours. So, but my real question is, you had like a little bit of a Twitter war not too long ago with Eric Bischoff, where he, and I quote, he said that you were the biggest financial flop in wrestling.
That's fucking bullshit. I can tell there's only one person that can attest to that. I don't know what other people, I can only attest what's happened here in public record, and some of these things are a matter of public record because things of freedom of information and stuff. So we do, have over the years a good amount of financial data in pro wrestling. I can tell you, like, no one wrestler has ever come in and made a bigger plus delta financial difference in the history of my company going into, this is the 3rd year anniversary this week, going into year 4. No one person has ever made a more positive impact. We just did a record pay-per-view buy. Every pay-per-view, he's done a 4 pay-per-view cycle now. Every one of them was the record. Whether it was All Out, where he was a huge part of the draw with Darby, and his debut, of course, is a huge thing from the first dance, the biggest Rampage draw in the history of that show. The matches, he carried the Friday Night War, which, by the way, is a matter of record in fucking court in the state of California, that we won the Friday Night War. Just ask Jerry McDivitt, because he fucking wrote it. And this guy won it versus Matt Sydal, who's a great wrestler. He had another goddamn great match on Friday night. This fucking guy, he fucking did the Friday Night War. He did the first dance. He's done the record Double or Nothing. He did the record All Out in his debut. He was a big part of a record Full Gear, a great match with Eddie Kingston, and fucking he wrestled a bunch of young guys, a bunch of veterans in between there. Will Hobbs, Daniel Garcia, goddammit. And then he showed up, did the biggest program in terms of everything, TV, box ever with MJF. And then he did the goddamn main event here. He's the biggest part of financial success in the history of this company. Let's fucking go!
We gotta put Ethan behind that.
Yeah, good answer. I will quasi answer that. I didn't have a Twitter war with anybody. I never mentioned them by name, and I think people like that just need to die in the dark, and I don't need to speak their name and stuff like that. I'm focused on what we're doing and the positives we bring to the world.
I don't want anybody to die. but nevertheless, it is bullshit what he said.
Yeah. We don't need to. Everybody's got a shitty opinion, so just let them have it.
That's a shitty opinion. It's the most bullshit opinion I've ever heard. And like I said, I hope the answer I gave backed up why he's the opposite. He's actually, for us, the biggest financial success story.
Okay, we're moving on.
Thank you. It works me up. Oh, sorry.
After the match, you kind of made a joke, kind of in jest and kind of not about never doing another buckshot lariat.
Yeah.
I mean, did you feel like when you did that, it was like, oh my God, I made a mistake, or was it just like?
Oh, I'm sure you're not going to give me 5 stars. Yeah, that's one of those fucking things. That's the only time that I've missed it since I've tried it. I did it on TV, and I just didn't hit it for whatever reason, and it sucks. But that's the fun thing about pro wrestling is I'm more comfortable when shit goes fucking sideways, and not everything needs to look perfect in my opinion. I'll probably beat myself up about it way too much, but mistakes happen.
So now going forward as champion, are there any names that you're looking forward to more than others? I mean, there's a list of 30 guys or more that we could go right through, but is there anyone that you're going like right now, whether it's whoever it is, that you're really looking forward to going against next?
well, obviously we got Forbidden Door coming up, so, you know, to me, focusing on that, I think Okada, Tanahashi, Ospreay, guys like that, I'm looking forward to stepping in the ring with. AEW talent, I always think number one with Bullet is going to be Bryan Danielson. I've never wrestled John Moxley. I wrestled Dean Ambrose, so that's an interesting matchup. There's still guys on my list that I've never wrestled with: Jungle Boy, Ricky Starks. I could probably finish out my career wrestling FTR like every day for the rest of my life, and it could be different and fun every single time. Will Hobbs is another guy that I think has all the potential in the world. We got a really stacked roster. It's almost a crime that we can't do everybody justice at once, but I think we're getting there with baby steps, and I think we're learning. I think we may make mistakes, you know, but instead of, you know, dwelling on it and punishing other people or ourselves, I think we move on and we just, you know, try to learn from things. Bryan Danielson would probably be the first guy that comes to mind. Very selfishly, I look at wrestling.
Will Washington, Fightful. So you famously had two other reigns that kind of kicked off summer in 2005 at Death Before Dishonor 3. You won the ROH World Title, and it kicked off what was known as the Summer of Punk. Fans kind of dubbed 2011 Money in the Bank, the Summer of Punk, and now we're going into another summer, and here you are, the AEW World Champion. How do you feel this next reign can go the distance and top what you did with specifically the first run with Ring of Honor?
Oh God, I don't know. I mean, that's the goal, right? And it's weird too, because I'm a fall guy. I like Halloween, I like the cooler weather, but summer seems to be my time of year. I think we top it by telling great stories and making the focus wrestling, you know, and I have a crazy sandbox full of talent that I get to wrestle, and I think that's how we try to top it. You know, I feel like this is the first time in my career I'm more comfortable being the good guy. I've always felt a little shy about it. I feel more connected to the audience than ever before. Probably has a lot to do with me disappearing for so long. And every day really is a gift. And I think that the fans feel that, and I think I project that. It's just like, man, this could all be gone tomorrow, and I'm just trying to really relish every single moment I have in the ring and make everything special. That's how we make that the best summer of Punk. Just try to make every moment count.
Dave Schilling?
Dave Schilling, LA Times. Two questions, one for each of you. Punk, you have wrestled a lot of the best in AEW so far, and I think this is probably one of your best, at least I think from a crowd response perspective. I certainly love the match. Where do you rank this in the matches you've had so far back in AEW? Tony, you've talked a lot about how you planned out the first four champions pretty early in the AEW history. When did you know Punk was going to be number 5?
You want to go first?
Where do I rank it? I don't know. Dax will probably make me watch it. And I don't know. The thing that's going to stick in my head is, you know, I screwed something up, and it might take that out of the equation, and it might have felt like damn near perfect match to me, just from the crowd response. And I feel like they were super into him and me, and it's more of a, you know, engagement with the audience and letting them kind of dictate which way we go. It's up there, especially when you consider this is the first time we ever locked up, and the first time you ever wrestle somebody who's normally sometimes gets a little sticky, you know. So as far as matches go, first time we ever touched, I think it's pretty damn good. But as as far as ranking it, I don't know. I'm honestly my worst critic, and I think everything I do is kind of meh. So I don't want to rate it.
I'm embarrassed to answer this specifically, especially with the champ sitting here, but I'm gonna kind of dance around your question, but say that we got very close in the pandemic, and then as soon as, you know, I think there was a point where there were no fans in the seats still, but we were really tight. And then things came together, and the first dance lined up, and it was like this miraculous thing that the United Center was available right before All Out, right, like within a month of when we came back, about a month and a half of when we first returned to the road, like, and it was exactly what he wanted. And I think I knew he could do it. I knew he could do it, and what would happen. And like I always said to you guys from the beginning, this isn't some Hollywood bullshit comeback. He's here every week. Nobody works harder than CM Punk in his company, and nobody's done more for this company in the last year than CM Punk has. And so I think in the pandemic I could foresee that like that. But from the other truth, that is a good question, and I want to tell, and he knows, and you know, is from the very beginning, like you made no secret, like, you know, you wanted to see if this thing got off the ground. You didn't want to be a guinea pig from this thing from the very beginning, and you came in at a time when the company had taken steps. And then I think like when you and I got to know each other in the pandemic, I think it like opened up, it created a chance for us to like, we had a lot of time at home and just started talking on the phone a lot and became friends. And so I think like that created an opportunity. We just didn't know when the fans would come back, but the fans have made this so special from the first dance. From the first moment he walked out is one of the great moments in wrestling tonight. It's such a great moment. And what I would add is from the very beginning of the company, you know, I knew that if we had CM Punk and along with the people we got, like I wanted him from day one, but when he finally came, it was been the best stuff we've ever done. Like I was saying, gave financial, it's not just about the financial, it's about the people. And we've never been in a better place because of you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Righteous Reg, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, Graph City Podcast. I'd like to formally apologize for the tears last time we had a conversation on the Scrum.
I've cried like 6 times. It seems to be.
Congratulations on your victory. AEW are on their way back to your hometown, Chicago, Illinois. How do you feel going into Chicago now as the AEW World Champion?
I feel a great responsibility, you know. Everybody always talks about locker room leaders and all this corny shit. I don't necessarily think, you know, they exist, except certain people lead by example, and to me that's what leading is, you know. So I'll lead the company into Chicago, and I'll learn from all my past mistakes and do the best I possibly can to show everybody in the locker room, not necessarily, you know, the one right way to do things, but you know, how to operate and how to conduct yourself as a champion. But I'm very excited to go back to Chicago. On top of doing AEW every week, I'm filming 2 television shows, so I kind of haven't been home in a very, very long time, and I'm hoping my schedule clears up a little bit so I get to actually spend like maybe a week or 2 at home before the pay-per-view, but we'll see. Shooting a television show in the time of COVID is actually more chaotic than pro wrestling, but I'm hoping to just keep working hard and staying healthy. And I mean, the show's already sold out, so to me my focus is selling pay-per-views, you know, but I'm very excited to go.
You're also leading the company into LA, champ.
I am. The Forum. It's so weird. A couple weeks ago, I went to the Forum to see Bill Burr, and I was like sitting there, and I was like watching Bill Burr, and I just was looking around thinking, man, this is so crazy. All these people came to see this guy. Hey, wait a second, we sold this place out too. It was like an aha moment. I was like, wow, it's pretty fucking cool. It's a famous building, and again, fortunate and grateful every day. Like, you know, I can say I sold out the Staples Center, and now I can say part of selling out the Forum, and it's neat. You know, it's exciting to me.
Bill Burr was here last night too.
Was he?
Yeah, he was here. I
Son of a
saw him.
bitch. He's following me
He was
everywhere.
great.
This guy.
Okay, last question, Stephanie.
Hi, Stephanie Chase from Digital Spy. The last time we saw you here, Punk, do one of these, you had just gone through this feud look back on your whole career, and you were very emotional. So I'm wondering about the timing now. Having just done that, was that good to get that kind of out of your system, like a cathartic moment, so now you can move on into maybe another stage as the AEW champion?
Yes, it's very much by design. Come back, get your feet wet, show that you can still hang, do a bunch of callbacks, kind of catch people up to speed about stuff they may not have seen. Is a happy accident that Tony bought Ring of Honor at the same time, so it's a great advertisement for that company, and I think MJF growing up a CM Punk fan was such a big part of that we got to tell that story, not just like a nostalgic way. We got to tell it through the eyes of a kid who grew up watching it, and different perspective. It's just pretty super interesting to me that we got to tell that perspective and tell that story, and it's just different chapters. And now this for sure is just the next chapter, and that was about the past. This is about the future, and I'm excited to tell that story.
Thank you very much.
Hey, you good? You got anything else? You good? You good? Brian, you good? Yeah, you sure?
I actually got a question. I don't want to kiss your ass here, but.
No, please, kiss my ass. That's why I'm here.
I've been watching your matches, and I feel this
sorry.
is the best you've ever been as a worker.
It's crazy,
I'm just
right?
a guy.
It's crazy.
And but I wanted to ask your opinion. What you think? Because obviously you had the ROH run, WWE run, this run here.
Yeah.
What do you feel?
I think it's so awesome. I think he's right. I think he's totally right. I think it's so cool.
I think you're right too, and it's really crazy. I don't know if it's I'm just older and I'm wiser. I don't know if it's just there's more, like I talked about it before. I feel like there's more of a special connection with the crowd and me. I don't know, man. I'm having so much fun, and I approach things logically all the time, whereas before, somewhere else, I think there was just all this external bullshit that at the end of the day doesn't really matter, and I don't have that here. There's not all that weird pressure, and I can just kind of go out there and, for lack of a better description, just be an artist, if that makes sense. It sounds super fucking pretentious. This is pro wrestling, right? But I think some of the best guys that ever laced up a pair of boots looked at it that way, and I said it to Mark Ramondi. I said, I used to think, man, 43 was old as shit, like these guys shouldn't be in the ring, what the fuck? And now I look at it just like I'm in my prime, and I don't want to just use that prime for me. And that's hard to say because here I am and I have the title, but I wanna use the time I have now to tell those best stories in hopes that the people I'm working with and the people that are in the locker room watching are like, oh, I get it. Like a lot of it comes with experience and putting time in. So I've developed the relationship with the crowd, and I just think it's this place. This place makes me better than I've ever been because I'm able to reach my full potential. Everything about it. This is this place in the mix of talent, and for all its warts, I love AEW. But like this is what I dreamed pro wrestling could and should be in America since I was like 15 years old, and it took this long to get here. And I think that's what helps make me be the best version of myself that I've ever been. And on top of that, I got tremendous talent that carries me through and makes me probably look better than I really am. That's part of it too.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
What was it like as far as, I don't even know if how close you were watching the undercard, but the matches that were, the last couple of matches before your match were pretty freaking great. I mean, do you, and you would probably know that before the show had started anyway. I mean, do you feel a lot of pressure because you're going to follow some incredible matches?
Yes.
I mean, is that like, and you're on last. You've got to put on a great match because you've got to equal or top what has already happened.
Correct. I oddly don't feel the pressure because because I think up until this point, the one match that people didn't want to follow on these pay-per-views was probably me, regardless of whether there's furniture and blood and all this other stuff. I think that's probably why I'm in the position, and I kind of relish being in the position where I think if anybody can do it, it's me. Just because I have the experience, and I can pay attention to the undercard, and I can change things based on what other people have done. So we're not seeing the same things over and over again, and you're going to see repeat moves and stuff like that. But I think I can adapt more just because I have the experience better than other people can. And I know because I have that connection with the crowd. And I really think me versus Hangman was just an interesting thing. And it was kind of 50-50 for a minute. And it might be the first title match that a lot of people kind of felt could go either way. I think that's why I'm in the position I'm in, is because I can adapt on the fly, and I can kind of change things at the drop of a hat and make it all work and not feel that pressure, whereas maybe somebody else will feel that pressure and maybe try to do too much or whatever. And I can just go out there and just kind of listen to the crowd and be like, okay, we got him. We don't need to go completely crazy. A testament to the crowd too, though, because it's a long show and they see everything. And they're still up for that main event, man. We got the best crowd in the world, man. We got the best fans.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate every single one of you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you. I need an ice bath. Do we have like a big tub of ice?
Yeah, I think so. So Topher, can you get CM Punk an ice bath, please? Sure. Thank you, Mike. Topher's a big part of.
Thanks, everybody.
Great job, everybody. Thank you. And up next,
Okay, next we have Jay coming up.
TBS champion, undefeated. Oh, that's great. Put the champs photo up there. Sorry, you guys just missed that. We'll try to get that to you guys.
What's up for the first whole team? Okay.
Can I get some claps or something? Put my shiny belt right here.
That's perfect, champ.
Okay, first question is Scott Fishman.
Yep, Scott Fishman, TV Insider. So it's clear you can see the confidence every time you see renewed confidence. You have the baddie section building up that that entourage that you seem to be having. But from an in-ring standpoint, how do you feel like you've grown as a performer? Kind of give us an inside look at just the work that you've put in, to better yourself in the ring.
I work in a company of people who have worked indies, who've done something for 10 plus years. I'm entering my second year. I'm working with one of the best, thank you, Tony Khan, technical wrestlers in wrestling in general. I feel like my progression is amazing. Brian did an interview where he said that he didn't feel comfortable until 6 years. It's my second year. I feel like I'm killing shit.
Go ahead, Joel.
Hi, Jay. Tony. Hi. How has your life changed, being a pro wrestler, and how have you adapted to this new kind of life?
So I was a previous athlete. It's not that hard, but wrestling is a whole different world in general. Just from the fans, with the fans, the schedules, the long hours, the commitment. It's different, and I'm still learning.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Rich.
Rich Strange, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, Grab City Podcast. Great match, great everything. You look great, you're phenomenal. You got some new representation today. I think someone was reading my Wrestle Talk article that I put out on, not pointing any fingers. Stokely Hathaway debuted tonight to represent Jake Cargill. I think it's the best pairing in the history of wrestling, possibly. How do you feel having a new representation here in Stokely?
I mean, he's the best talker in the game. Who would want anything less than that? Somebody to represent a superstar that's about to just come forth in front of all you guys' eyes. I think Tony Khan made the best decision that he could ever make in this situation.
If I may, I was in a very unique position, champ. So it was pretty unusual. Stokely's 90 days expired yesterday. So I have never met him or spoken to him until today because I do things the right way with honor. So it just so happened that in 90 days expired and I had this idea, we were lucky. I mean, there's a lot of independent wrestling and stuff going on. I think he's been around, I guess he's been around Vegas. I had never met him until today, I swear on my life. And I never had a conversation with him. I've had him in mind since 2018, actually. Since like early, I mean, I remember being way back in the day, actually with Cody, and I was saying I really like Stokely Hathaway, and Stokely Hathaway I'm a big fan of him, and it's funny because he came in today, and with Stokely Hathaway, having had another name recently with another promotion, I'd never had this conversation with him, so today I told him I want you to be Stokely Hathaway. I'm the owner of Ring of Honor. You have a great history in Ring of Honor, and not only did I explain I wanted to pair him with the world's greatest network champion, the world's top undefeated pro wrestler, 2 years in with such a sparkling record, and add to the presentation that's already come so far so fast. And he, like Jade said, he's a great talker, and I'd literally never met him and spoken to him. We'd never talked or spoken until today, which is pretty cool that it worked out. Yeah, it was a great time.
Seriously, guys, I didn't know anything until I didn't know anything. This like was a surprise to me just as much as everybody else in this room. Trust me, I was excited just as much as you were.
It made for a great moment, and I think it was a great surprise for the fans, and the timing was sometimes like we've been fortunate sometimes, and that was great timing that he expired yesterday.
Yeah. And you didn't read my recipe. I think you read my recipe.
A lot of, hey, I think it's an obvious solution, right? Putting one of the great champions in wrestling with one who's already got so much charisma with a great talker, and they can be like Bockwinkel and Heenan. A great talker with another great talker and a great mind. So I think they could be the new Bockwinkel and Heenan.
Andreas?
Jay, congratulations tonight, another great match. What does that title mean to you, though? Because on one hand, it's about proving yourself, but on the other hand, it's about representation, on the other hand, it's diversity. And as you carry it, does the significance of it change as your title reign continues?
So when I first got the belt, I was like, damn, like this is a lot. This is a lot. I feel like it was a weight. It's a huge weight to have a belt in general, especially for a company that's on primetime TV. But being that Tony Khan believed in me, and every time I got up there, I was like, all right, Jay, you gotta freaking kill it. You gotta prove these people wrong. You gotta do this, that, and the third. And I'm putting in work. It means a lot to me. Every match I have, I'm like, okay, Jade, you have to show them how you're progressing, how you're getting better. Like, you have to show why you're worthy of this belt. You have to show these people who have done this for plenty of years and why all these people telling you that you're this and that and why you're gonna believe in yourself and keep pushing. It means the world to me. I love looking at this belt. I am the first. I am the finest. And I believe I'm very much deserving.
I want to follow it with, I know that we don't do the A and B titles, but you feel like that's the A title. You carry it like you're the A champion.
I have no comment about that, but we all know. Let's just say that.
Alicia?
Alicia, Women's Wrestling Talk. There were 3.5 women's matches. How does it feel to, be growing this women's division? We saw it show up and show out with a debut and your match, that entrance. So how does that feel as a woman to see this grow?
It feels great. When I first came in, my first promo was about elevating the women's division in general. It wasn't about me being a queen or anything like that. It was about me elevating a division. I don't see the point of being a king of a division that's nothing. You're here to elevate a division and make it better. That's what we're here for. Women's wrestling in general needs to just progress and progress and progress and get bigger and bigger. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here for the stepping stones for the next generation that's here to come.
Brian Zone with the Money in the Bank channel.
Money in the Bank channel?
Yeah, no. But we're not talking about that though, Tony.
No, no.
We're not
I'm just talking about money.
We're just talking about money.
That's
But
good.
Jade, you are money, congratulations. But as a performer, as a mother, as a wife, how do you actually take care of yourself mentally to put yourself in a good state of mind? Because you're in a dangerous line of work where you have to not only take care of yourself, but your opponent. Like, what do you do to give you that happy moment or happy spot, like where you can just be like, like whether it's like a hot bath or wine, like what is it?
Being that my spouse it has nothing to do with wrestling in general. That honestly helps me out. I can go home, let's just say I'm stressed out. I can be totally stressed out, but because my spouse is in a whole different world, it's easy for me to just go home and he can just say, Jade, cut the shit. Sit down. Breathe, relax. You're in a whole different world right now. Wrestling in general is its own bubble. And being that I have somebody who's outside of that bubble who can just like pull me away from what I'm so focused on, it's a great feeling.
Will Washington, Graph City. Hey, buddy. Question. So, and I guess Tony might be able to chime in if you don't have the answer on this, but when Cody Rhodes departed AEW back in, he gave the official statement back in February, I believe it was. One of the things he said he wanted to see was the Cody Vader end up with Jade. And that became something that the internet had been asking for pretty much since then. Everybody felt like it was perfect for your entrance. And tonight, we finally saw that. So my question is, what's the new name for it now that we're done with Cody Vader?
I guess I'm gonna keep using it. You guys, Will, you're costing me several $1,000s a week. It adds up to like $150,000 a year. Like, it's a great show. Maybe we'll keep it. It's great. It is great. I thought I'd save $3,000 a week, Will, but you're pushing me to keep it. But tonight for the pay-per-view, I thought it was. Thank you, champ. Thank you, champ.
But we can call it the money lift if we're gonna call it something.
That's it. The money lift. It's done.
Money lift,
Greg,
that's
it's the money lift. I'm sorry. We'll take it out of the budget.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Over here. Go ahead, Don.
Dominic D'Angelo from WrestleZone.com. Jade, I got to thank you. Dominic D'Angelo from WrestleZone.com. Jade, I got to tell you in Pittsburgh that you're my girlfriend's favorite wrestler. She's not a wrestling fan at all. Talk about being able to kind of reach out of the wrestling realm of wrestling fans and kind of being able to connect with people. Did you kind of have that mentality going into it as a wrestler and getting into the business? And how does it feel to kind of be able to do that in a lot of ways too?
Well, first, I must say, thank you, girlfriend. Second, I feel like that's what I'm here for. I want to reach a whole nother demographic that we don't have in wrestling right now. I want to be the person where the wrestling fan is watching wrestling right now, and their friend that doesn't care about wrestling at all is watching, and they're into fashion or whatever, and they're like, damn, who is that? Like, let me watch that, and they get into it, and then their friend watches and pulls them into it. Like, that's what I'm here, is to reach a different demographic that we don't have, and to be that crossover, and to reach that fashion designer, or to reach that makeup artist, or to reach that person in Croatia, or whatever it is. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to reach your girlfriend that's not into wrestling. Like, that's what I'm here for. I love fashion. I love sports in general. It's so many different levels to who I am.
Just to add to your exact point and elaborate how Jade's star power crosses over, like, wherever we go. Like, so, like, AEW, we've been invited to, like, big sports teams games, and for example, we've gone to the Chicago Bulls, Nashville Predators, and when you walk around these big arenas with thousands of fans, for people who know wrestling, they spot wrestlers, including Jade, that they're excited about. But for people who've never seen wrestling before, when they see Jade walking around with the TBS title, people come up and they'll say, "That's the champion of wrestling? TBS, huh? That's pretty cool, and that's what you want." So that's huge. And I've seen it happen in, like I said, at many sporting events, all across the country.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, girlfriend.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, let's do two more. We do right here, do Denise and then Nick.
Denise Salcedo, Instincts Culture. You mentioned being into fashion, and immediately that triggered something in my head where I'm like, when it comes to that, I feel like there is still so much that can be done for women's wrestlers in terms of how they're portrayed in pop culture and mainstream and all of that. So with that being said, I think you know where I'm getting at with this question is, what would you like to see in terms of how AEW helps get their female wrestlers out there to the mainstream culture and all of that?
I mean, just putting us on, like, for example, I love Sports Illustrated. I want to be on the body issue so freaking bad. And I can say that because I put so much hard work into my fitness and just my regimen and just keeping myself together for you guys. Because the day that I gain like 30 pounds, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get butchered out here. So I want to see us just crossing over more to like fashion and on magazines and doing catwalks. Like, I would love to walk for Fenty. Like, that catwalk, I want to do it so bad with this beautiful, luxurious belt. It's so many things we can do. It's so many, we're powerful, strong women, and being that Title IX, I believe, just crossed over, the soccer team, all that thing that's just happening right now, it's just going to elevate women's sports in general.
Awesome, thank you.
Last question.
Congratulations, Jade. Nick Hausman with Wrestling Inc. Red Velvet put out a post this past week that got a lot of people talking about Sonny Kiss possibly joining the Baddies. Much like Stokely Hathaway, seems like a good fit. I think a lot of people would agree Sonny would as well. Do you see him as somebody you'd like to bring into your mix?
I think Sonny is an amazing person. I think Sonny is nothing but a bad bitch. If you ever see my Twitter, I literally have tweeted this out. I think it got over 4,000 or 5,000 likes about it. We're just crowded as hell right now, guys. Like, we got a bunch of people. We literally have, like, I have a lawyer. I have a
You got a manager.
I got a manager. I have two beautiful women right next to me. I love Sonny Kiss. I would love for him to be a baddie, but Jesus Christ, guys, like, we're loaded right now. I can only do so much.
That's it. Thank you very much, Jade.
Thank you.
You were so awesome.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I hope you guys enjoyed the show tonight.
Thank you, Jade.
Hey guys, next up we're gonna have Chris Jericho. Why don't you give me some hands? Let me see hands.
Oh man, this is gonna be fun.
Dave, why don't we start with you, okay?
Great night, guys. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'll get to catch you after Chris comes in. We can catch up at length too. It's been a real special night. Just before Chris comes in, some notes I'll drop that are interesting. So this is the record for Double or Nothing. All of our pay-per-views continue the streak. All of the pay-per-view franchises have been up year over year. All Out, every All Out's been higher than the year before. Every Full Gear's been higher than the year before. Every Revolution's been higher than the year before. Now for the fourth Double or Nothing, based on digital buys, I can safely project this is the all-time high for Double or Nothing. And it's in part due to all of you, and I'll just say that again at the end, but I really appreciate all being here and disseminating and helping build interest among the fans for this. If you don't know, I talked about it with other media during the week. Is Chris coming in? By the way, I'm ready to come. Whenever you're ready. Okay, and I'll drop this stat again maybe later, but it looked increasingly likely that there might be a Game 7 this weekend, and when we planned, had I gone Saturday, it was actually more likely that the Warriors would have played, because the Warriors would have been Game 6, and a Game 6 is far more likely than a Game 7, and actually there was only a 28.1% chance of a Game 7. So, but as the series was going on, 28.1% chance, so about 72% of the time you're not going to get it. So I was playing the odds when I booked this. It looked like the Game 7 was less likely, and we've always done better on pay-per-view on Sundays, especially with a holiday week and Memorial Day. So with a 28% chance, I thought we had a pretty good chance. As the series went on, I was like, oh gosh. So I came up with a plan that I think worked really well, and the person in here is a big part of it, because the last 3 matches were the hottest 3 matches of the night, arguably, at the end of a show, that because I pushed the buy-in to a later start, and tried to make sure we had really special stuff with Anarchy in the Arena, and of course the World Tag Title and then the World Championship matches at the end of the night. We saw record buys, and we did get late buys, which was part of the strategy, because I thought people would know the game's over, and there's still, hey, there's fans gathered at home, friends gathered, families gathered watching sports. Hey, what the heck? These matches are on, and then Anarchy in the Arena gets going. People hear it's nuts. Tell your friends. Tell your World Tag Title. You can still catch up on all the great stuff you missed. a lot of the favorite, whenever Chris comes in, I'm ready to, I can answer this later. But, you know, a lot of my favorite pay-per-views are like 13, 14, and they're great to rewatch. Like, how many times have I watched WrestleMania 17, which is like 13 matches? How many times? Now, they're a little bit shorter now. Some of the 12, 13-minute matches in this show, like Jericho and Regal, only went like 7:45, which I think Chris could. But anyway, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I think people are going to watch it over and over again. It was a big success for us commercially, and I think the fans at the end proved it was the right move, holding stuff out, holding hot stuff, and commercially a success. And I heard a lot of you like the matches a lot, and the stuff at the end got the response we were hoping for, and I think the whole show was great. Do you guys have Chris? Oh, great. Okay, great. Well, that's great. And it's very fitting. We had the champs, and then Le Champion, the first champion, coming back to where we did this for the first time. It's a different building, but it's cool to be back here. And after Chris is here, I'll stay with you guys until you get all your stuff answered and talk to you. But it's really a very special, crazy day. And like I said, I put stuff in later in the week knowing that as the series went on, it was like, okay, this is going to happen. I'm going to stack the card up. And I felt like starting later. It was about Revolution. It was probably similar bell-to-bell time because Revolution, the buy-in started near the top of the hour, and we went with that. Layla and Statlander had a very good match. And then later, the House of Black had a good match. I mean, the Hook matches were, it would have been like if we kept the Hook match and pushed those other matches into the pay-per-view with the West Coast start. So it was actually probably a very similar bell-to-bell time from when the buy-in started. But I think it got more into the pay-per-view window. And I've talked to Dana and Hunter and the people at UFC. I mean, I think Dana runs the best business in sports pay-per-view probably history, and certainly the most consistent winner. And they put on long pay-per-views. I mean, Punk and Hangman went into the ring far earlier than any UFC main event or big boxing main event in this town. And I was here I was in the MGM Grand 10 years ago when Pacquiao and Bradley fought, and they smartly held back because, and think about it, look, like, it's no secret to the sponsor of the show, the title sponsor is DraftKings, and we advertised that people had action, and I think they saw the most of any of the matches we promoted through them. And for them, it was good too to have like people get out of the Heat Celtics game and then be able to go back because the title sponsor of the company that's like the biggest sponsor we have right now, and they happen to work with UFC and other big companies. With what they've done, I think it made sense to get out of the Heat Celtics game for them. And speaking of a guy that ended this with the hottest last 3 matches I think we've ever done on any pay-per-view, and was a huge part of why this was a huge night and one of the best things we've ever done. He's been big from the beginning.
Did you speed up?
It was great.
Hey guys.
Hey. Thank you.
Okay, first question, we've got Dave Meltzer.
Chris, how you doing?
Oh, hey Dave, what's up, man? Good to see you.
Not too much. So, the match.
This is Tokyo maybe, right?
What?
Tokyo Dome maybe was the last time I saw you, 2020?
Last time we were saying would have been Tokyo, yeah.
Before the world went nuts.
Yeah, right before.
Yeah.
So, what was it like? I mean, you had 10 people. I mean, and that match was just insane. I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it like putting this thing together? Because I was just like, there's so much going on that you almost have to watch it like 4 times to catch everything. I mean, it was insanity. That's all I could say.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say that our production team, our directors did just an amazing job because it was very crazy. We had done the Stadium Stampede the last 2 years, obviously, and it was because it was a product of its time. I just watched the first Stadium Stampede with Matt Hardy for his podcast just a couple days ago. It still holds up. It's such a great spectacle, especially when none of us really knew what was going on. We had to record the whole thing in an empty stadium, obviously. Then last year was kind of a combination of the Stadium Stampede and then a live, the finish was in the live arena. So we were talking, what are we gonna do this time? We thought about a couple different things, a couple different names, and then we just said, let's make it kind of a Stadium Stampede, but in the live arena.
I was standing in the back. We were standing in the back of the arena, and literally I said like, well, Arena Anarchy.
Yeah,
I was like, oh shit.
Anarchy
But
in
then
the
you ended
arena.
up going to Anarchy in the arena.
Yeah.
It was better, but it was just like we were looking. It was a great choice.
Yeah, we wanted to do something with that spirit, but transpose it into the live arena. Now, a street fight is a street fight. We said, let's just go completely over the top, and also keeping in mind that we have 10 people and only so many cameras, and we got to keep it where the fans can kind of still see what's going on. So we came here on Thursday and just started talking about it, and that's when I started thinking like, okay, this is going to be really cool. And then being out there and feeling it, I think people really enjoyed it, and I think where Tony placed it in the show was very smart because it was the right place to kind of kickstart the last third of the whole show.
Well, real quickly, so
Sure.
because of the way this match went and everything like this, do you think this can be like one of your company signature matches, like where you do it once a year or every 18 months, or something you go back to as like kind of one of your regular?
I think it's a more sustainable solution than Stadium Stampede. I think Chris is the master of reinvention, and I think once again, putting heads together and with Chris's great mind, we reinvented and did something, and now we have anarchy in the arena, and
we were very proud of Stadium Stampede. We said we were originally thinking maybe we should call it that, but it's a new version of it. But then we said that was a product of its time. Maybe we'll revisit it, but now we can do an anarchy in the arena whenever the time is right, no matter what time of the year it is.
Dave, LA Times?
Thank you. My favorite part of the match is the song playing through most of the match. Whose idea was this? And then whose idea was to kill it?
So I think when we were talking about it originally, we were kind of harkening back to New Jack, when his music would play throughout his matches, which kind of took away the fact that there was just basically plunder and just garbage going on, but the music added some excitement to it. So we thought, okay, so if we can play the music for the first third of the match, that will kind of sustain it to where people see it's just kind of basic. Well, nothing was basic, but just kind of until we get to some of these bigger moments. I think because no one's ever done that here in AEW or anywhere since then, it's kind of it kind of makes it seem different. It makes it different. And then I thought, well, this is great, and I'll be the party pooper who hates this song, and let's break the soundboard. So let's put a soundboard thing up there, and we'll break it. And that was my favorite part too. As soon as we hit the ground, it goes off, and I was telling Tony, I love wrestling. I still love wrestling for moments like this. Yes, it's comic, but it's like the asshole heel just hates music, and it's I'm gonna smash this soundboard and finally cut it off. And then that kind of enabled us to go to the next stage of the match. So it was kind of half of a cue, half of a really kind of opening kind of salvo of just chaos, and then gives me a cool moment of being the curmudgeon who just hates rock and roll music. Turn it off.
Danny, Las Vegas Sun?
Chris, you obviously wrestled in this city for many years, dating back to WCW. Coming back after 2 years away, not having Double or Nothing here, to come back where it all started, I guess, how good was it to have Las Vegas back as a wrestling town and seeing the revival?
Yeah, Las Vegas has been a great wrestling town for me and all the companies that I worked for, but especially for us here. I mean, this is where it all started for us. It really did. And I think Chicago and Las Vegas are the two cities that are really synonymous with AEW as far as kind of some of our foundation shows, the tentpole shows. So to come back, and like I said, we did a great job during the lockdown of keeping the lights on, creating new historic Stadium Stampede, but to be back in the crowd. And it's not the MGM Grand anymore. It's the T-Mobile, and this is a big room, man. And when we came in here the other day, there was nothing in here. It was just one big giant empty room, and it was this is a big place. So it was once again it shows we were really hot before all the stuff went down, and now we're really hot after. Everything has gotten better. And I think that's a testament to the work that we all put in keeping the ball rolling. So now that we can have a full T-Mobile Arena and deliver the show like we did tonight, it puts us kind of right back to where we were in January of 2020.
And you remember when we got cut off, it was 2 weeks before we were going into New York, New Jersey.
That's
finally,
right, for Blood and Guts.
Going to Prudential Center, and everything changed. And now we built, not only do we get to do that, but then it worked out so well that when we finally did go to Prudential Center, then we also a week later got to build another franchise tentpole show with Grand Slam, which is our tentpole TV there, and build the New York market out, which I think is obviously in the world of sports and wrestling is so important to all, as we know. And here in Las Vegas, Chicago, New York, and now finally opening up LA with you going back to the Forum, which is pretty cool.
That's gonna be great too. I mean, all these big shows on this side of the country, we're very, very excited about. It's been a long time coming.
Brian?
Chris, great job tonight. Brian Zellman, Money in the Bank Shot. Through the last couple of months, you've obviously gone through a physical transformation. I have not seen you speak on this publicly on what you've been doing on your diet, because dude, you're 50 and you look great. What are you doing?
Yeah, it just was a combination of a bunch of different things, and I just started really kind of changing my diet around for for a little bit for some health reasons that I had that I'll explain at some point. But once I lost like 10 pounds, and it wasn't really that hard. I said, well, maybe I'll just keep on this diet. And then it just became a way of life, and just it's tied in so perfectly with like Tony mentioned, reinventing myself. It was just when we started doing the Jericho Appreciation Society, and then I lose a bunch of weight, and it just kind of all fit in. It was like, it really was inspiring to, like, you know, that's the hardest thing whenever you have to break some kind of a bad habit or eating habit or whatever, where you feel a little bit of inspiration. Then it tied into what I was doing on screen, and Tony was very much behind it. It just all fit. It was the next, like every time I reinvent, it's not, I don't write it down. I wish I could say that I just write these things down and it's all coming to plan. None of this was ever supposed to happen, ever, except for I had some health issues in December. Then as soon as I was fine, Eddie Kingston broke his orbital bone, and they were like, what the fuck are we gonna do? This is like the match that's never gonna happen, except for now it created the whole Jericho Appreciation, the Blackpool Combat Club. All of the stuff that we're doing was very organic, and it just is, I keep saying it, it's writing itself. The story is writing itself, and that was a big part of it.
Hi, Chris. I have to highlight three guys, 2.0 and Danny Garcia. What did you see in these guys, and you know, how did you guys work on these three guys to get in such a great match as tonight?
Well, it's kind of a combination. Once again, Tony and I always laugh because we always have great minds think alike moments where I'll text something and he'll say, I was thinking the same thing, and vice versa. And he put those three guys together, right? So when we started thinking of like, okay, maybe I should, because my original idea was to end up doing the feud with Eddie Kingston. You can't win the big one. He wins the big one. We shake hands. We become partners. Maybe we join up with Mox and become like some kind of a trio of just kind of hard-nosed vets or whatever the hell it was. And then Bryan Danielson did the promo where he said, I'll start with my own faction with Mox, and I'll bring in Lee Moriarty, and I'll bring in this guy, and Wheeler Yuta, and I'll bring in Danny Garcia. And I was thinking, well, that's kind of a drag if we do that, because then Danny Garcia and 2.0 have been this trio that was involved in me and Eddie's story. And I thought 2.0 was doing really good. Kind of brought them in and didn't know what to expect, and they kind of really killed it. And then I started thinking, why would we ever break them up? And why would I not use them and turn on everybody else and keep Jake as the heater and start a whole new faction? And it was just like, that's it. Because Eddie had just done a thing where he said that Santana and Ortiz didn't win the tag titles because of me. And it sprinkled this little shadow of a doubt in there, and that's when Eddie got hurt and he couldn't work. So I said, well, let's do a thing with Santana and Ortiz. Finally, the Inner Circle goes our separate ways. Sammy quit because he was the champion at the time. It's between you guys. It just all fell into place, and that's when it was like, okay, I could use those three guys and start a completely new thing and put the spotlight on them, and not just on Danny, but on Matt and Angelo as well. And they've done a great job. I mean, Matt Menard has become one of our best characters on the show. I mean, he's what Pat Patterson would call a gimmick. You're a gimmick. If there was no wrestling, you'd do nothing in life. And that's basically what he is. He's a gimmick, man, in the best possible way. So we've really kind of seen this, and like, you know, and Jake Hager's always very underrated. We're all into it, and just let's all wear white tonight. Let's wear Kangol hats like Danny Garcia, who was like originally was like, well, he's a sports entertainer, and people were furious. The Ultimate Wrestler is now a sports entertainer, and what did he do? He wore a Kangol hat. I was like, I was this many days old today when I wore my first Kangol hat. Like, what the fuck is a Kangol? Where'd you get a Kangol hat? You weren't even alive in 1996. So everyone's got inspiration, and everyone's feeling it, and it just creates great moments and great matches like we saw tonight.
Think there's a couple more? Yes.
Ryan L.
Yes. I'm intrigued at your ability to get things over that you've done throughout your career. And I've noticed that, like, Bryan Danielson will come up with an idea of something that he wants to get over. Like he saw the Yes thing from...
Right.
Yes. But it seems to me that you will do something, and then you will see that there's an ability to get that over. Like when the belt got stolen, you did the promo in the hot tub, and you mentioned the bubbly. I don't think that you, at the time, and you can correct me.
No, there was no bubbly, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you had the idea that I'm going to get over this phrase, the bubbly.
Right.
But you saw that it got over and that you went with it. So how would you, I just kind of want to know the way that your mind works. Would you say that the majority of the things that you get over, the list, the bubbly, I mean, you can go throughout your career. Were these things that I'm gonna get this list over, I'm gonna get this bubbly over? Like, is it kind of like a Danielson thing where you have this idea of something you want to get over, or are most of your ideas, something happens and you just think, man, I
That's
can go
it.
with this?
I think one thing that I'm pretty good at is just reading the room. Because I've had a lot of things like where, like I thought like, GFY, that's a good one. And then the same night, Mox came out and literally said, go fuck yourself. And I was like, well, that one's done. But no one was really getting into it. You're kind of swimming upstream. But for example, like the Wizard, for example, all it was throwing the fireball on the Wizard, and I start seeing people like, okay, they're making gifs of Chris Jericho with a Gandalf, Chris Jericho's face on Gandalf, or like all these cartoons or Dragon Ball Z, and it's like, oh, this is interesting. They like this Wizard. So then I say it a couple of times, I can do what I want because I'm a wizard. And then little kids now, they're posting videos. Oh, what are you? I'm a wizard. Oh, now we have something. So that's why we did the fireball last week, just on the random backstage guy, because you don't have to do it much, but just doing it a second time, now it's Chris Jericho's. I'm a wizard. My dad said, how did you do that fireball? I said, I'm a wizard. I'm a wizard, Dad. I was like, well, I'm doing it. You want one? It's in my hands. So that's kind of, you just read the room and kind of see, like, people don't bring signs anymore. You notice that?
Yeah.
I noticed that a couple of weeks ago. Nobody brings, back in the day, signs everywhere. That's how you could tell. Jimmy Hart would always say, you can't make people write
You know why?
signs.
You know what's hard?
Why?
You can't hold your sign in your phone
Good call.
at the same time.
That's a good point. Good point.
Everyone's always got their phone in
So
their
you used to be able to read the signs, and now what you do is read social media, and you see kind of what's moving and what's shaking, and then, we could maybe put out a t-shirt, see how it does. Oh, it's the #1 seller of the week. Okay, now we have something. So I think it's basically just reading the climate of the room and kind of hearing what people do, and just that I'm pretty good at that. And instinct is good as well. A lot of, 32 years of doing this, I have a real kind of good feel as to what people are into or what they might be into. And most of the time I'm right. Not all the time, but most of the time I'm right. Even Jericho Appreciation Society, when I told Tony that one, he bid on it right away. And I was like, dude, he was like, that's great. And I was like, when I first said that, huge outrage. Jericho Appreciation, that's terrible. It's terrible. I was like, okay, stop. I'm in charge. You should have called it Inner Circle 2.0. Right? No. That's terrible. And then here we are now, Jericho
And the sports entertainment.
And the sports
I
entertainment.
leaned into sports entertainment as soon as you said it.
Another
What a
one.
genius! What a genius! And it leaned so perfect into Brian Danielson, Mox.
Well, that was another thing too. I'm sorry, I'm telling you guys have
great.
been here a long time.
No, it's great. They
But, so
love it.
we were in Bridgeport, and Eddie Kingston and I had a face-to-face promo, and he was great because he came in there and said, I don't even know why I'm here. I don't want to talk. This is pro wrestling. You want sports entertainment? Go down the road. Huge reaction. Oh, that's interesting. They don't like sports entertaining. They don't like sports entertainer. Call my trademark guy. That's a weird question. Sports entertainer trademarked? Nope. Is now. So that's kind of why I was like, it's perfect. And then like he just said with the Blackpool Combat Club, and then suddenly they're connected because of Eddie and Mox, and none of you guys saw it coming, which made me laugh so hard. All the smart minds in the room, nobody saw this. It's 5-on-3. It's 5-on-3. Okay, it's getting old. These guys got to do something. Blackpool Combat Club. Oh, it's getting old. They got to do something. You never saw the connection that it was coming to a head. We came up with that 3 months prior. But it's like I said, it all connects. Everybody connects. So pro wrestlers versus sports entertainers. There you go.
Thank you, guys. Last question? Go ahead, Dom.
All right, Dominic D'Angelo from WrestleZone. We talked about reinvention. The first time I did a scrum, I asked you about Terry Funk reinventing himself. Who on the roster would you say has that potential to kind of reinvent themselves that you've kind of seen? Have you seen anybody kind of give that indication or something in that regard?
Well, I think Brian Danielson's doing a pretty good job. I think Moxley, if you look at Moxley now compared to 3 years ago, maybe not like a different gimmick or something, but he's a completely different performer than he was then. A lot of our roster is very young. You know what I mean? So they haven't had to reinvent yet. You know when it's time to reinvent when you start getting stale. But unless you have the experience, it's hard to know that you're getting stale. That's once again, you got to listen to what the crowd is doing. I mean, Matt Hardy's reinvented himself very well over the years, but he's also got years and years of experience. So I don't know, and I'll have to see. I'm trying to think who's creative. Like Swerve Strickland is very creative, and I had him on Talk is Jericho, and just listening to how he thinks about wrestling is very interesting. Malachi, a perfect example, done a great, completely different of what he was in WWE, with still a kernel of the same thing, but he's created this whole new faction and vibe for himself. So those type of guys, I think, have a real proclivity to change. Because reinventing is not just doing great promos and doing new angles, it's a complete gimmick change. I always go back to when Kiss took their makeup off. You know what I mean? Like, you knew that this was a new Kiss because there's no makeup. That's just insane. Why would they do this? Because it's different now. And for me, every time I change, there's always different clothes or a different look, different catchphrase, a different entrance. I remember when I walked out in trunks in 2008 in WWE, and I'd worn nothing but long tights for 20 years, and I was like, okay, I'm turning heel. I want to get rid of Y2J, get rid of the countdown, and switch from long tights to trunks. And I walked out, and the first guy I saw was Bruce Pritchard. He said, "You've got great legs. Why have you been hiding them?" And I was like, oh, great. And I walked 3 feet down the hall, I see Dean Malenko. He goes, "You look ridiculous. Why would you wear those?" If I had seen Dean first, I would have went back into the locker room and would have put my long pants back on. Because I saw Bruce, I was like, okay, this works. Same with Painmaker. The first time I wore that makeup, the only place you could walk into a dressing room and no one would bat an eye is in Japan. Because they love weird shit there. I remember walking out and no one even said a word. I went to talk to Naito and he didn't even look, and he go, "Nice paint." He just said, it was like, no one's even commenting on this. This is great. I'm gonna do this and continue on as the Painmaker in New Japan. So, like I said, you just have to know and have instinct and be completely confident and not be afraid of what anybody says, as long as you see Bruce first and Dean second.
Thank you, Chris Jericho.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, guys.
If I may, Revolution, Chris knows this, and I may have even mentioned this to different people here. I thought the last pay-per-view we had, Revolution, before this, was one of our best, and I thought Chris's match with Eddie is one of the best matches we've had, and for both men, and then I was like, how are they going to come back and follow up on Revolution tonight, and something completely different, completely unforgettable, and somehow he did it. So thank you once again.
And I just want to say one last thing too. I'm really happy for CM Punk being our new champion. What a story, 7 years away, and then now he's the champ again. So I think that was a perfect way to put an exclamation point on a great pay-per-view.
Thank you, man.
All right. Thank you, guys. Good seeing you. Gosh, I've fallen over enough furniture tonight.
God, jeez, guys. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, guys. Why don't we start with Nick?
Hey, Tony.
Well, you want me to move to the middle? Yeah, I'll do that. I was trying to stay out of the spotlight, center stage, if I may. Just pour a glass of water. I'll stay with you guys for a while here. Thank you.
Tony, Nick Hausman with Wrestling Inc.
Yeah, Nick, what's up, buddy?
I'll ask you what literally everybody wants me to ask you, which is, from your perspective, what happened with MJF this weekend?
I'm not going to comment on that, but I've got a lot of stuff on the pay-per-view I can comment on, but I'm not going to comment on that.
All right, well, then I'll follow up with something maybe you will comment on, as Punk alluded to, sort of longer than average show. I had a lot of people hitting me up saying they felt fatigued, especially on the East Coast where the show ended after midnight. Is this the kind of length of show you're going to continue to put out going forward?
Follow the feedback of the fans. It was pretty similar. Revolution had great response, and commercially the show was very successful. Like I said before Chris came in, I was starting to say it was a little bit different, and I ended up adding a little bit to the length of the show to help the show commercially and help the show make money. And I think it made, if not a 7-figure difference, definitely a 6-figure difference in the bottom line of the show. And so that's a big consideration, certainly, and a major financial consideration when Game 7. Like I said, it was probably only a 28% chance of a Game 7. It was far more likely if I'd booked the show Saturday that there would have been a game, and it would have been the Warriors who were a big draw. And so the Game 7 only happens 28.1% of the time. 72% of the time, this would have been a pretty easy thing. And on the West Coast, I probably would have ended it around the time they always end. Every pay-per-view's ended between the same time until tonight. They've all ended. We've got a lot of the best pay-per-views anybody's done. They've all ended between 11:40 and 11:55-ish, between 11:40 and 11:56 on the East Coast, which is like 8:40 to 8. So this is about the same amount of wrestling bell to bell as the Revolution. The difference is, I was starting to say, Layla and Chris Statlander had a long, great match before Layla got hurt on the first match of the buy-in in Orlando, which was on the East Coast for the fans. And I thought the fans were far more, from that I learned probably better to put the stuff in the pay-per-view. I thought the crowd, this was the best. If people were fatigued at home, I'm sorry, because I never intended it to be that way. But it was the best the fans in the arena have ever reacted for the last 3 matches of any pay-per-view we've ever done, Nick. And I've done 13 of them now, and plus the original Fight for the Fallen Fighter Fest, which were free, but they were free domestically. I think they were still international pay-per-views, but I think overall international gets a good deal on pay-per-view prices. So I think domestically, this was again the highest we've ever done for Double or Nothing. So as I saw it go, it was getting more and more likely that it was going to go 7 games, which again is very unlikely, less than 28.1% historically, exactly. And so as it was tied 2-2. I'm watching. Obviously, we did really well. If anybody followed the Wednesday ratings, I was really happy with the go-home show in terms of the quality of the wrestling. I thought the wrestling was excellent. I really loved the Samoa Joe versus Kyle O'Reilly main event and the 3-way match with Swerve getting the win, probably his biggest win to date. It's a big match on Dynamite with Jungle Boy and Ricky Starks. And I thought that it was very clear the basketball game with those guys had a big impact on the rating because we were over 1 million for the first hour, P2, and about over 475 for the first hour. Then it was like, I don't know, 880 in the second hour. It was over 1 million in the first, so it was a huge drop, but because of the basketball. But still, overall, the show did a really good number. It was up week over week, and a .35 is a huge number to pull with what we were up against. We were a top 10 show on television right now, not cable, a top 10 show on all of television. Dynamite, with the competition it was up against, I mean, everyone was up against that competition, and it did really well for Warner Brothers Discovery, which had like 6 of the top 10 shows on Wednesday. And I'm sorry, that's not true. ESPN had big coverage too. I think Warner Brothers Discovery had 4 of the top 10 shows. ESPN also did well. We beat every show on ABC, every show on Fox, every show on CBS except Survivor. And NBC has that power block with the Chicago shows, the Chicago Med and the Chicago PD and the Chicago Fire. Those did real well. We were top 10 on all of television, beating broadcast TV now. That's a huge deal for us. And that was against big sports competition. So there was clear, though, from seeing the way the first hour moved, that like it's going to swing our fans. I see evidence that we had, by putting the hot 3 matches on at the end, a lot of interest in the show, and it drove. Not only were they the hottest, like I said before, not to belabor it, the hottest the crowd's ever been for the last 3 matches of any pay-per-view we've ever done. So I felt really good about that. People at home, I mean, look, I had dinner with Dana out here. I think I may have noted to people while I was out here, and with my dad, and we were talking about it. It's a great business strategy for them too. Punk and Hangman went into the ring before any UFC main event you'll ever see, and they do pretty well. They do great numbers. They're the biggest pay-per-view company in the world, and they do a great job. They have similar number of fights as we did matches, actually more. You'll see like 15 prelims, like 15 matches on a UFC card. Why? For a lot of reasons. They've a lot of fighters that people are interested in. It drives engagement. It drives betting. It gives people more time to buy the show, builds more word of mouth for a main event. And hey, on a Saturday, guess what? Like, it's no secret I'm in the football business. I, for my career, have to watch football on Saturdays.
So are you trying to move in kind of a UFC-style direction? Are you trying to kind of...
No, like I said, I'll see what the feedback to this was. This was a unique circumstance. I was flexible with a window. It's a good chance that we would have ended it at the same time we always do. If I hadn't had to add to the card to make sure there was a whole, almost like, look, the whole pay-per-view was great. But it was one more match than Revolution, Bell, to start to finish if you had the buy-in. There were 12 matches on the Revolution. There were 13 matches tonight, including the buy-in. There were 12, it was 9 plus 3 on Revolution. It was 12 plus 1 tonight. So it was one more. Bell to bell, it might have been, I think it was very similar start to finish in terms of the action. And it was on the West Coast, which I think makes it make more sense. So like I said, for these people in Vegas who come to the fights, and also people from all over the world, but in Vegas, in this building, they never see a world title fight before we got to the match. And they start early with more fights. I think, I'm not saying look, if a UFC model is a very successful model. We're obviously totally different sports.
I was going to say, yeah.
But I have a ton of respect for what they do in pay-per-view, and that's why one of the reasons why I've loved it. They're the 800-pound gorilla of this business, and I stay out of their way. And also Dana's my friend, and he's been so cool to me. So like, I take great pride in their success, and also like being here in their home building in their hometown, and like this is his territory. So I wanted to see him with my dad and hang out with him while I was here. But like he was telling me, it's worked great for their business too. I was telling him, I bet now, because Game 7 was looking very. It was Thursday night we had dinner, so I didn't know there was Game 6 hadn't been played yet. But I was telling him, I was like, and they have these things all the time. They have big sporting events on Saturday nights. College football's huge, and same as me, they're rooting against the game going to overtime. And tonight I think it was a 4-point game. So we had Shivani push when the game ended, not saying about the basketball exactly, but saying like, hey, there's people at home, if you haven't been watching, this has been a great pay-per-view, which has been a lot of great stuff already, and there's so much left to go. And when Anarchy in the Arena was going off and the crowd was the hottest they had been at the entire point of the night, and the basketball game's over, that's a good ad for people to like, hey, you might want to like flip this on. There's a lot of people watching with their families or with their friends. Gatherings now are back. People are hanging out in their homes more, so it's a great reason. Hey, the game's over. If you get one wrestling, I've been that wrestling fan, right? I've been that fan at like watching. Hey, was the Royal Rumble 2003 on during the football championship games? It was, right? Anybody?
I think that.
You mean the NFC and AFC championship games?
I'm pretty sure it was. I remember watching the matches, like the Kurt Angle match, and I'm pretty sure the football games were on that night. And that's like literally the second and third highest watched TV shows of the entire year after the Super Bowl. So I was in that game. We were in the Jaguars were actually the number 2 show of the year in that year, second most watched show of the year. So like, look, like it's. I thought it came out incredibly well. I'm sorry for the long-winded answer, but it was a crazy week for many reasons and for the length of the show. It was shorter than WrestleMania 31, I believe, which is a great show other than the Sting stuff, I think, is one of the best shows. And so besides that part, it was a great show, and it was significantly longer than what we did tonight, especially with the stuff at the beginning. He's pointing and nodding.
You were right, it's the same January.
It was.
Yeah,
January 9th, it was the same day. Yeah, they were up against, so I remember watching the championship, which is obviously a big part of my life now, 2003, Royal Rumble. So like a lot of big events that happens, but we actually fought through. This is a big win. We did our record gate. We did the record for Double or Nothing again, every time, and it was a big success. And for the crowd, that's why I put those 3 matches at the end, knowing that the crowd would be the hottest they've been. And we got the hottest crowd. I think for people at home, look, like that was one of the things Dana said that really got through to me. Is like if what you're doing is working, keep doing it, and like ignore like some of the noise if it's working, because like you're gonna get people that don't like what you're doing no matter how well it's doing. And I think, look, that being said, I don't plan to always go this late. I think it was a unique circumstance, but I left us the flexibility. We could have ended like we have every other time, by 11:40 to 11:58 on the West Coast, which would have been 8:40, and it would have been about 40 minutes earlier than we actually did end. But I added about 40 minutes into the show, and like I said, I think it paid off at a tune of 6 to 7 figures.
Okay.
Thanks.
Will Washington.
Hey, Will.
Michael and Rhapsody. How you doing, Tony?
Great, Will. Thanks. How are you?
Pretty good.
Great.
Actually. Don't really have much of a voice. I've been doing a lot of screaming. So.
You've had a big week.
Yeah, I have.
Really big. Well, you've been traveling. And
I know. I have been back and forth.
You went back and forth?
I've been back and forth.
You got to see your cousin win a high-profile match on television?
Yes, that was great. That was the whole reason I came. So, speaking of which, I've been to a lot of AEW shows. I'm pretty sure this is like my 13th. And one of the things I have noticed is I pay attention to the crowds. And this crowd in particular, for all of the pay-per-views I've been at, was the hottest I had ever seen it in the final stretch. Especially once the
Arena. I warned the guys. That was the one thing I said might happen is somebody would do what you just did. But yeah. Anarchy in the Arena.
Anarchy in the Arena, right? We've used anarchy twice. Okay.
Yep.
So with that said, this was only the second pay-per-view that AEW's ever had in the Pacific time zone. So knowing that going forward, do you see, or is this a better question for Raphael?
Well, no, Raphael and I literally talk every day about the booking. So it's a question for the two of us. We're the ones that do it.
So do you foresee, especially with talking about the length of these pay-per-views and how, that you were talking about how you were comfortable going along with this one, do you foresee doing more shows, specifically pay-per-views, out closer to the West Coast?
I do think if the competition was right, I would maybe have had, the buy-in, maybe the length, one match less on the night, maybe one more on the buy-in, maybe 2 less on the pay-per-view, change things. I could have moved things around had, things not gone this way with the timing. But it is nice to have the flexibility. Also, we just want to service the fans all across the country. I think we've been all over and done pay-per-views all over the country. I think there's a lot of great places to do pay-per-views on the West Coast. We're just now bringing the TV to LA this week, which is obviously a good thing for me to plug and talk about now with Dynamite for the first time and Rampage coming to California. And I think now that we're finally doing Dynamite and Rampage out on the West Coast also, and of course Double or Nothing, bringing it back here, which I think now, like I said on Wednesday and Friday, I didn't spend any time with I wasn't planning to go out at all. Martha asked me to go out with her, Dr. Martha Hart. I was not planning to go out. She asked me. I wouldn't have taken up. I told her it's her moment, and that's why I got the heck out of there after I did walk her out as she asked, and then I thought she was doing great. She was out there with 2 great ones, and but I wasn't expecting to go out at all. But I said on Wednesday and Friday, Double or Nothing staying in Vegas forever, and I think they showed why. It's great to be back, and there's great markets on the West Coast and the Mountain Time Zone too. As you know, as a Mountain Time Zone guy from Denver.
So there's Dynamite too.
Yeah, and that was one of the last Dynamites before the pandemic shutdown. It was the second to last show. It was actually the show after our best pay-per-view at that point, probably to date, was Revolution 2020. And tonight was the same kind of hot crowd, hot environment. I was really proud of it. So it was a longer show, but again, it was shorter than a lot of WrestleManias and Wrestle Kingdoms. So I do think like we get held to a very high standard, which is overall a good thing in sports, as I've seen. Better than not being held to a high standard, as I know from some experience in football in America and at times in Europe. But right now, things have probably never been in a better position with fall than we are right now.
Dave?
I know this is something you probably think about all the time. And this is related to the crowd, which was great. But in WWE, there's a sheet that says baby faces, heels. And if you say, I want two heels to wrestle each other on Raw, you're going to say no.
How do you know that, Dave? Tell everyone.
I'm not, because I worked there. God, this is embarrassing.
What did you do there?
I was a writer.
Oh, okay.
This is embarrassing. Anyway.
No, wow, jeez, why is that embarrassing? Hey man, I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm not trying to be a dick. Working in wrestling's a great thing, and that's a great place to work in wrestling. So.
Sure, yes, it's great. But the question is, Tony, the question is, you do this a lot, and this main event was two baby faces, two of the most popular wrestlers you have. And were you ever worried that when they went out there would be maybe not good tension, but like negative, like weird, like, oh, this person, maybe this is not good for them and their character going forward? Do you ever feel like that conflict, that special tension that you need in a wrestling match isn't there if you have two people that are kind of the same alignment?
They're very different wrestlers,
right?
And they have very different backgrounds, and they had very different paths to get here. So I thought that even though neither one of them is like a traditional rule-breaking wrestler, you know, a lot of times they say styles make fights. I thought they'd have a great match, and I also thought, look, the sanctity of the championship is very important. Like, we've had 4 champions until tonight. Now we have our 5th champion, and every one of them is somebody the company can hang their hat on as a face of the company, and that includes Hangman, who was excellent. And look at all the great matches. And I know I said this to a bunch of you in the build-up too, and in interviews, but what a great champion Hangman has been for the company. And it was something I felt really strongly about, and it's something I believe in. And you know, look, I'll tell you the truth. When he took some time away from the company a year ago, I don't think a lot of people in my position would have held things for him the way I did, and made sure that he still got a world title shot when he got back, and put him in a position where he go in the casino ladder match, give him the opportunity as a joker to go in and then earn a world title shot after he had not been around, and could have gone with people that were more experienced, but I believed in him, and Hangman is a guy we've been lined up in from the beginning, and I'm a loyal person, and he's a loyal person, and he's a great wrestler. And from the very beginning of the company, the story when we were out here was Hangman, and then it was Jericho, and then of course Mox and Kenny at the end. And we're the first 4 world champions. Well, we set up for Jericho. Mox took the title from him, and Kenny, which was the end of the show, and the beginning of the show, as we set up going into it, was we knew coming into the show was Hangman was going to wrestle whoever wins the main event. It's either going to be his kind of, they weren't partners yet, but his stablemate, Kenny, which would set up more later. But so the 4, we really believe in these 4 wrestlers. And I thought that this was the perfect main event for the fans, a match that was a must-see. It was like Punk said when he was sitting in this chair before they asked me to move over, which I was going to leave the aura of this chair that you know, CM Punk and Jade and Chris had sat in. So yeah,
I think you were proven right about the match.
I agree.
The
Thank
crowd
you.
certainly said.
There were people that didn't. Thank you. I really appreciate you saying that, because there were people that like thought that it might not make as much, and I was said from the beginning it would. And that for the prestige of the title, it was actually very important. And I guess now is as good a time as any to point out that, like, I talk about Hangman, and this comes full circle. Around the time he left was around the time Punk came in. And a bunch of people said you should put the belt on Punk as soon as he gets in, especially when Hangman wasn't there to wrestle Kenny at all. And the reason he was not there is a very legitimate reason. It was a great reason. I'm very happy for Hangman and his family. And at the time, that was his private matter, and I think it was great that what they've done and had a family, and then he came back and beat Kenny in the payoff of what's, you know, the longest standing story in this company still. And they have had one of the best matches, if not the single best match in the history of the company with with Hangman and Kenny and the Young Bucks. and at Revolution 2020 again, I always go back to it because it was a special night. And I think, Dave, it was the right match, and I appreciate you saying that because I do feel like it was proven right as I was pointing to somebody in the back because I smiled to him because I told him the crowd was gonna, and if a bunch of people worried about the length of the show, and I told him commercially this is something that is gonna be very good for the bottom line of the company, and I promise that the crowd will be hotter than ever, and with what we have at the end, it's gonna be great. And I thought, between the Anarchy in the Arena and the World Title match, the World Tag Title match was a great, perfect match to go in between. And Hangman, whether it was a Kenny winning the title from Kenny, the first 60-minute draw on live television in my lifetime, I don't know of one. I think Backlund-Hennig was taped, Dave, right? So
Backlund-Hennig did a tape match,
yeah. So there's no live 60 minutes in the modern. Kerry Von Erich and Ric Flair on the Financial News Network was taped in Hawaii.
Oh, that was taped weeks before they were, yeah.
So there's no live 60-minute Broadways?
I mean, there was
Iron Man
there was
matches,
Iron Man
but
matches.
no, not Iron Man matches. Like actual, like one fall. Have there been a one fall 60-minute time limit drawn left? I don't think so.
Shawn John Cena did 55.
But that wasn't a 1 hour Broadway. Okay, it was close. They did 8. That was a great match. That was a great match. But was that tape delayed? Wasn't that from England? That was also tape delayed.
Okay, and Flair and Steamboat did 55 live.
Yes, and that was 2 out of 3 falls. So 1 fall, 60-minute Broadway. It's the only live television in the modern. We've gone through a lot, and we went through a lot of stuff just now.
In Japan time.
What's up, Dave? What was the last thing you said?
Oh, in Japan time.
Oh, but yeah, I'm sorry, in America, yes, domestically. Yeah. Domestically, the first, so Hangman and Danielson, and then the match they had to kick off the TBS era. Like, Hangman was the champion that brought us into TBS, which is like really meaningful and important, and that'll never be forgotten. The Hangman-Danielson match on January 4th was a huge success for us. Was it January 4th or 5th? 5th, thank you. I was thinking January 4th in the brain. Thanks, Ref, good job. January 5th, I knew I caught myself there. Yeah, on January 5th when we started the TBS era, that Hangman Danielson will always be a huge part of it. And then the matches with Adam Cole, who again, what a way. Adam Cole, what a great moment with Adam Cole and Britt and Martha Hart, I thought. And Adam Cole, great matches with Hangman. The Texas Death match was very special. And of course, Revolution. A lot of people, again, didn't think that at the end they would get the reaction and stuff. And Hangman and Cole the crowd was as into it as anything. I think, up to, for at least for a while there. And it was just an awesome match, and Hangman's been tremendous. Takeshita, great match with Takeshita. I think that was unanimous. So styles make fights, and we talked about the run Hangman's had, and when Punk was in here, we talked about the run he's had, and it just felt like the right match. So thank you for letting me give you a long answer to your point, but just felt right. And as far as how they come together, I think. There's, I hate to borrow a phrase from your former employer, shades of gray, right? And that's UFC, that's Pro Wrestling, that's AEW.
Hey, Tony, Stephanie.
Hey, Stephanie. Great.
So with owning Ring of Honor for the past couple of months, how have you found juggling that with AEW as far as time management, everything else you do, even sorting like the rosters of all the wrestlers you have? And then with it being now a pay-per-view month, plus you've got Forbidden Door coming up, what has that been like?
It's been the greatest run we've had. I think it was a crazy time. I've never been busier than I was through April and May, and now it's starting to actually open up and light at the end of the tunnel in a really positive way. But I'm also excited what's coming in the fall and winter. So I'll come full circle back to AEW if I may. So and Ring of Honor, both. First of all, before I go full circle, I'll start. Ring of Honor, technically, it hasn't been a few months I've been the owner, actually. It just closed pretty recently. It was kind of a gutsy thing I did on working off the interim agreement, but I was actually the interim booker for a while there because I hadn't actually, Sinclair was still owning the company, but I'd taken over financially, and it was agreed that everything was, it was really cool. They were really good to work with, and I think I was they wanted the Supercard of Honor to happen. I think it made sense if I was going to purchase the company that the Supercard of Honor would happen with me booking the show and running the show and taking since it's after the agreement, But they were great. Sinclair was awesome with it. So I actually just closed pretty recently because they were awesome to work with. But it's a complicated asset transfer. I think sometimes that's stuff that outside of the business. Sometimes people that aren't in the business communication with all the assets that were being transferred, and there's a lot to document, that we had made a deal. And it's a pretty famous story because I was not sure that it was actually going to close in time for the announcement in March in Daly's place when we did the announcement of Ring of Honor. So We worked off an interim agreement. So then we come back to that. As we close that, it was a really exciting time for AEW. The Supercard, going back to that, and how busy I was around that time. We're getting ready for the NFL draft at the start of April. Fulham is in a really exciting position at that time. It was looking increasingly likely that we would get the automatic promotion, but also we really wanted to win the Football League Championship, which we did. And so going in through April, it's always a crazy time for me with the NFL draft, especially I still do the same things I've been doing for many years where I like focus on the players that don't get drafted and try and use statistics to find some good undrafted players. And so that was a really busy time, and we were coming back. I literally flew in from TV in Philadelphia. I came from Philadelphia where Doug Peterson was the head coach, the Jags head coach, and then I came back for the draft. I had been in Pittsburgh and then came back, and I went to Philly and then came back right from Philly, and I literally got in the morning of the first round. And I'd been doing everything on the phone and Zoom. And at the same time, Fulham was cruising. The Ring of Honor, we had just done the pay-per-view, and I'm just really proud of the Ring of Honor pay-per-view. And talk about pay-per-view length, that was under 3 hours. It was like kept it to 3 hours. It's different. If that's really what people want from AEW, I'm open to it, okay? If people want less for their $50, I'm open to doing it if that's really what people want. But I do think, look, a lot of commercially successful things, the Batman, I see people saying to Matt Reeves, like, you made a long Batman, but it's also the most commercially successful thing that Batman's done in a long time. So it's worked very well for us because we did record numbers and the crowd was hotter than they've been. So, you do hear, but again, you see that's the one thing people say about the Batman, right? 3 hours.
You're talking to me right now, but when you started...
Well, you're the one who asked.
I know, but when you started AEW, you said you didn't want to do these length of shows. You said you didn't want these WrestleMania-length shows. That's what I'm wondering is if your strategy has just changed in the 3 years.
Well, I've seen I've learned a lot, and pay-per-view numbers have grown, and again, that's part of, like, on pay-per-view, I think we've grown as a pay-per-view. Every milestone we could hit, we've hit. Every pay-per-view year over year has gone up, and we did it again tonight. And it was against probably the toughest competition for any Double or Nothing yet. I don't think we've had to face a Game 7 playoff with two big teams. 10 years later, literally 10 years after the Heat and the Celtics went 7 games, I was here when Manny Pacquiao left the crowd sitting. I sat for an hour waiting for something. And this crowd didn't sit waiting for shit. They had the hottest 2 lead-up matches to a main event they ever had, and then they had the hottest main event. It was the hottest go-home stretch of shows we've ever done. Again, I like giving people a lot for their $50. The Ring of Honor pay-per-views are less money, so I do them. It's we value the fan every bit as much, but we do a little bit. We charge a little bit less, and we do a little bit less. I've only done one, but it was one of my favorite shows I've ever done. I'm really proud of it. And so going back to that, I love doing that, and then since then. There's been the merge. What, are you okay? Are you mad?
Sorry, Mandy's shaking her head.
Give Nick the mic next time.
Sorry, yeah.
No. You're okay. Is everyone okay? No, I'm fine. I was just going back to your question.
Fine. I wanted to address you too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I saw Mandy shake. You're great. You did great.
I apologize.
So, Steph. So going back to this because I really want to. It's a long question. There's a lot. So if you want to know everything, I'll give you a long answer. So then going through. This merger and now the new company we've come out of with Warner Brothers Discovery. That is a really exciting time for us too. It's a really exciting thing. And then even this week, like I did press and I was on Zoom with the manager and the CEO of Fulham and with Marco talking players all the days. Get up early for that, and then Jags were in camp. That's an exciting time. The coaches are starting to evaluate players coming in. It's kind of a quiet time for me in football. I was just at the NFL owners meeting. So I was at the NFL owners meeting in Atlanta talking about media rights and exciting things. I flew out here for TV. So I was at the NFL owners meeting Tuesday, came out here Tuesday night. We did TV Wednesday. Thursday morning, I was up at 5 a.m. and started doing radio on the East Coast at 5:55, and then I did it till noon. Then I took a shower quickly. No, that's not true. I did the all media call. I took a shower. I talked to a bunch of you on the all media call, and then I went to LA, and I met with the new management of the company, and then headed out there. And it was the most exciting, exhilarating meeting I've ever had in my life, and I've never felt better about the future of the company and more safe about what's happening here. And I'm really good about the new Warner Brothers Discovery to have such a strong management. Nancy Daniels is such a strong leader, and she was really cool. And so I flew out to LA and back to meet Nancy Daniels along with her team, and it was some familiar faces and also new faces, and it's really exciting. It was my first time at Discovery, and what a great thing we have. This is the future of everyone who works here and the fans, who it's really important because now I feel like there's a real Discovery sees too how important it is to the wrestling fans to have wrestling on TBS and TNT. because it was gone for too long, and it's really cool that it's back. I think it means a lot to a lot of people. I know it does. And so we have such great management there, and they ask such great questions, and it was really encouraging. And I know there's so many things we can partner on, and I'm really grateful for that. So that was probably one of the most important things going on. So it's a ton of stuff, and now the Ring of Honor is closed, and I'm still, I think there can be a future there, hopefully with a weekly Ring of Honor and also big events. Supercard was a huge success. It was many times over recent Ring of Honor pay-per-views, one of the biggest Ring of Honor pay-per-views ever. And yeah, so it's all really exciting stuff. And then football season's gonna start. Fulham's back in the Premier League. The Jags have a new head coach who's awesome, and I really love Doug. And he's brought so much experience. He won the Super Bowl. If you I don't know if you're familiar with. We come to England a lot every year, the Jaguars. And Doug, we actually played Doug, the Eagles, in the year after they won the Super Bowl, and the year after we lost an AFC Championship game, they beat us. And Doug, he's played in the NFL and he's played in the Super. He's been on the roster of a team that played in the Super Bowl. And Doug's played in big games, and he's a great coach. So working with him's awesome. So I'm really excited for football season, both in the Premier League and in the NFL, and really excited for the summer to come in wrestling. I mean, to go to the Forum is a big deal for me. I claim a lot of places as homes, like Ted DiBiase when I was a kid. He changes residence every quarter, but I do. I live in, a lot of the year in Jacksonville more, and I base out of there, but I travel 52 weeks a year every week for Dynamite, so I do, 175, 200 flights a year when you include football for both continents. And it's just 104 alone for Dynamites. And if I'm in Jacksonville, maybe twice a year, call it 100 just on Dynamites when you add in live rampages, pay-per-view specials, football. It's a lot. So a lot goes into it, but I try to manage the time and remember that I'm responsible for a lot of people, and I love every minute. I'm doing whatever I'm doing, I love it, because to work in those businesses, it means a lot. So LA is along with Jacksonville, Champaign, Illinois, Chicago, Illinois, and London. I consider LA one of my big 5 homes, and I've never gotten to work with AEW doing a show out there before, but it's where AEW was actually formed. And I was just telling the new management this story because it was actually out there where I first had the conversation. It was in April 6th of 2018, where I had a conversation out there that led basically the launch of AEW, and it was my partner in activist artist management, Bernie Cahill. He dragged me out on a Friday night, and it's a good chance we wouldn't be here if he hadn't. And I saw the president of TNT and TBS at the time, and he took a chance on us that I'll never forget. And then after the ratings were good initially, he took an even bigger chance on us and gave us the extension because the first deal didn't pay that great, but it was still an opportunity to go on TNT and TBS, and it did pay something. And now it pays fairly, I think, and they've done very right by us. And now we have a whole new management team that can get behind us in new, exciting ways with AEW. So that's a lot of stuff. I also there's a bunch of other companies I'm on the board of or own that I'm not talking about here. True Media, Sports Analytics, but the management team there does a great job running the day-to-day, and other business ventures. I'm on committees in the NFL. I'm in the Fan Engagement and Major Events Committee of the NFL. In March, I flew out for TV out of the Fort Myers TV. I had a committee meeting in Palm Beach. I don't get much time to myself, so I was talking about Batman to Nick and how long Batman was. I landed in Monday night for a committee meeting in Palm Beach. Jonathan Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, is actually a big AEW fan, so he runs the Fan Engagement and Major Events Committee, and he was nice enough to put me on it because I think we've shown that we do a good job engaging with the fans here and can add to the big events in the NFL, which are the biggest events in the world, and the engagement with the fans, which I think we do a good job with. And Jonathan's one of the world's leading experts on that and data, and he's a big wrestling fan. When we did Mox versus Nagata in the summer of 21, I knew Jonathan Kraft was a big wrestling fan when he said to me, you got them coming on your territory. And I was like, oh my God, you get Mox versus Nagata, the business of it. It's and at the time it was a business coup unto itself, what was happening in the world of wrestling. I got to lay the hammer down in a major goddamn way. So, so it's a lot, but I'm just, it's awesome. And does that begin to answer it for you with the juggle?
Yeah, kind
It's
of.
like juggling.
Yeah. A lot, yeah.
Great.
Sounds exhausting.
No, it's a great question. I hope it was a good answer, and
Yeah,
hopefully it's a start.
Guys, just a few more questions, okay, Denise?
Great.
Okay.
I can take a few more, and I want to make sure anybody who came and stayed all this time gets to ask me whatever they want. Hey, Denise. Speaking of the Ring of Honor Supercard pay-per-view, what a great host you were.
Thank you so much for saying that. I'm very happy to hear that. So my question for you is, given the fact that we had our first Double or Nothing here in 2019, I was here for the show, and so much has happened since then. So today, knowing everything that you guys have accomplished, all of the records and the people and the over $1 million and all of that, what
Over
would you go
1.1.
back? 1.1.
It's a lot. It's 100,000.
It is. It's a big difference. Yes, yes. So with all of that being said, if you can go back and tell your 2019 Double or Nothing Tony Khan self, what advice would you tell yourself, or what would you go back and tell yourself during that time period?
Trust your instincts going into the pandemic, because what you're doing is safe. You're not going to let anybody get hurt. It's voluntary. Everybody wants to come. It's voluntary. The first week, March 18th, was like really hard, and a bunch of people, like, I walked out of my office and like every big star and all my office were in there, and they were all pulling in different directions. And it was like, I was like, look, if you don't want to be here, it's 6 o'clock. The show goes live in 2 hours. You were in there. And I said, if you don't want to be here, you don't have to be here. But the show goes live in 2 hours. And the show I formatted it, like, if anybody doesn't want to come, I'll change it because I got time. But like, and it ended up being a huge success. I think like 950 ballpark watched it. And the P2, and it did a huge number in the demo. One of the biggest we saw, and it was actually significantly up, and it did a huge number for the debut of the late great Mr. Brody Lee and Matt Hardy. And it was supposed to be in Rochester and Brody's hometown, but we put together the best show we could and pushed forward, and now it's a historically important show in the history, and it started the pandemic and put the wrestlers around ringside, and it was a weird week for me, trying to figure out what to do in the pandemic. And I watched wrestling on Monday, and when I didn't see the fans, the wrestlers as fans, and I didn't see the hard cam on the screen, I thought, okay, we got them. We got something here. Because I figured then they wouldn't, between then and Wednesday, it wasn't gonna change either, back when we had competition on Wednesdays. And I can tell you, I've never watched the competition on a win. We've done 100 shows head to head with other wrestling competition. I've never watched one before, but I did have basketball on the side. So it's a good question. A lot changed, but I would say in the pandemic was the most important thing we did, because we were on fire going into the pandemic, and I think like I had kind of around Christmas that year. That was the last time we had a week off. The last time was Christmas 2019. Which was, I think really said something to our new bosses, that we were like, we'll work hard and commit. And I never, look, safety-wise, we had no issues. We had fans. When we brought fans back, AEW was the first to bring fans back, actually even ahead of the Jaguars. And the Jaguars ended up using our seat configuration, which then a lot of teams use, the 25% configuration we brought back. And there's different ways to do it. And I'm not saying that I get, anytime I say something, I kind of can't. But there's different opinions about the Thunderdome, but I thought there were things about it, like that's a way to go. That's a way to go. But if outdoors, for us, we were outdoors, not indoors. So outdoors, I equated it, and a bunch of you heard me say this 100 times, but I'll say it again, the drive-in movie experience. It was like, we're gonna create it, and we'll bring the fans back. We're outdoors, this is safe. They said it's 99-point-something% safer than being inside, 99%. And that if we put people out there, as we did, even with masks outside, socially distanced from everyone else, a family or a group of friends comes in, they sit their own section of seats, and we were able to get like 1,000 fans in and do that for months and months and months. The Jaguars ended up doing the same thing in the first week of NFL 2020. The only 2 teams had fans in the stands. It was the Jaguars at home and the Chiefs. And so that, I think, would be the biggest thing, because when we came out of the pandemic, we were really ready. Like I said, Punk wasn't here yet, but he was coming. And we came out red hot, and then a bunch of other crazy things happened, and All Out, the end of All Out is one of my, really, All Out is, I think, still, it's our biggest triumph maybe, but tonight it was right there with it, and I will see where the numbers settle, but this was a great, the way we started it, not to go full circle to somebody else's question as I keep jumping around, but I thought it was the right thing to do to have Punk earn the #1 contender spot and wrestle his way to this position where he had big matches, and it built and it built and it built. And also he helped a lot of people in that time. A lot of people became better wrestlers and got spotlighted. Until tonight, I would say that was the biggest match of Will Hobbs' career. And then he was in a big spotlight on pay-per-view tonight, but those are probably the 2 big. And certainly with Garcia, he did so much for him. What Eddie, good Lord. And most importantly for us and the company and the fans. So it built to something really cool. So I think the biggest thing I would say, I'm sorry to go, but just thinking about it as I go, probably would be to trust our instincts going into the pandemic, that this is going to be safe, don't abandon ship, and that I can get paid out big dividends for us. And then even when we had to go in the next week, they wouldn't allow anybody in Daly's Place March 25th. If anybody has never heard this story, they only allowed 10 people in the entire amphitheater as the fire. So it was Tony Schiavone at the desk. I was the only person backstage. They said the truck is a separate domicile. So Greg, you were out in the truck. There were 10 of you in the truck. I set up a trailer of wrestlers to be the crowd, since there was nobody at ringside, but at least to get some cheering audio. And then God bless Chris. Chris went out and was like, let's go, getting people going like a leader. and he didn't have to be there. Nobody had to be there. It was a very small crew. If you don't know this, I'm the guy who robbed a bank and is telling you his secrets. I think people know this by now. Does anybody know from March 25th, Kip and Darby was taped the week before for Dark? People do know that now? Kip and Darby was taped. There was nobody in the building. Nobody knew the difference. So it was completely empty. Cody was on commentary by then with Tony, because what I did was, again, you only get 10 people. I couldn't do tag matches. Brandy was doing the ring announcing, so because they showed up, and these are the people that really showed up for me. And so Kenny and Tony Schiavone were on at the start, because then at the end, Kenny and Sammy Guevara were going to wrestle like 28 minutes in an empty building and had a great match for the AAA title. And then at the end was whatever with Matt Hardy in the spot. I was just happy. It was Chris's idea with the thing, like I said, and whatever. It was, you know what? The fact Chris and Matt even showed up, I was very thankful. I was going to do whatever. And Sammy coming out from under the ring made a lot of sense and set up stuff that ended up. Then we shut down for a month, and that match that we built there, we didn't get to do until May 6th. But when we did the May 6th TV, it's one of the things I'm the proudest of, because we were shut down for a month. Then we went April, and we had that crew that showed up. That's when the TNT title became. I'd wanted to do it for a long time. It was a plan, but that was like, okay, now we have to do it, because that's all we can do here, because like we have to reset everything. 29% of the roster showed up for the tapings in Atlanta, and those are the only shows I go back and watch. Those Atlanta ones. They're literally the only shows I go back and watch. The last one is so good for what it was, with opening with Cody Darby, and then the crossover match with the Best Friends versus Havoc and Sabian, and the no DQ match, and then ending with Dustin and Archer, and videos and stuff. It was like the shows really came together, and they kept getting better and better. And also our post-production, I learned so much about post-production and got better, which suited us really well, because then we came back going to the Wednesday-Thursday tape cadence, with like Wednesday on, and then we would tape Thursday, and that was really important. And I think also it cut travel down in half, and it saved a little money, but also it also was really good, I think, in the pandemic era, when it was peak pandemic, to have people traveling less, and we didn't know about planes and things like so. So that was really important. We came back May 6th, and then Double or Nothing come full circle to tonight, because that show wasn't here, but I was really proud of that show. That's one of the only other pay-per-views I always go back to watch, because it was really special. And a lot of it I like to go back with Mox and Brody. I think it was great, and I think that was like Brody's best. That and the dog collar match are probably Brody's best matches here. It's the best pay-per-view match for sure. And it was really special. And I called John, and I talked to John and Brody in the pandemic. John was going to come back, but he's like he'd been out in April. He wasn't at the April taping, but he was going to come back in May. And I was telling him we built Brody up on this thing. I think that's a really good match. We can get him in the top 5. He's like 3-0 record, and he can steal the belt. And we do 3-week build up, and it's like as good as we can do. I think it's going to be fucking great, dude. You guys are going to tear the house down, and they did. And then we also set up Taz and Darby that night, May 6th, which is a program that went like a year, and set up Jungle Boy versus Max. We set up so many things on that show. And then we did of course the street fight, which is one of my favorite live TV matches that we've done, certainly especially to that point, with Kenny and Matt Hardy versus Sammy and Chris, the golf cart, the whole thing, the Inner Circle's Name and Lights, and it built up to a Double or Nothing. So yeah, the pandemic era, it was hard for so many reasons, but I think we came out of it better than ever. So that would be the number one thing, and I think it's like that was what I was talking to Dana about too, because that's what he's proud of stuff too, and he says the same thing. Like, and it's very different, and there's different opinions on how different things went, but he said that that for them that was important too, and I think it changed their business, and they did huge numbers by doing shows in April. I think it ended up being safely, and they came out of it even stronger too. So that was what he said. Does that make sense?
It totally does. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, really just a couple more.
I'll take anybody who hasn't asked. I think there's a few people that I haven't gotten to talk to. Hey, Red.
Hey, Righteous Red for Wrestling Illustrated, Grab City Podcast. We've talked a little bit about California, making your way back to California this week. Please come to the Bay Area. I'd like to say that out loud. You make a lot of conscious efforts. Did you make a conscious effort to have, we're going in with the tag team champions and the TNT champions being California people, representative for California. So did you make a conscious effort to have some great representation going into those shows?
Absolutely, yes. That was really important. I think we have a bunch of big stars from California. Of course, the Young Bucks also, and we'll be very close to their hometown on Friday. They're from Southern California guys, so a bunch of great wrestlers from Southern California on the show. It's a great point. And also representing different eras of AEW. Like I saw, who was it? You guys might know. Somebody in here might know. Somebody had a great tweet. Might have even been one of you in the room, honestly. That I bet you saw it. The 3 different eras of AEW were represented in that tag match. You had Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, the originals. And I've seen a lot of people talking about how I'm beating all the originals. So I just thought this show was an interesting balance of the new faces and the originals, right? And there was a balance. And it was some of the originals, some of the new faces, and matches together separately, and it's gone. It's a tug of war like it should be. But I saw somebody say that the three-way represented the three eras because you saw Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, the champs from the original era. You had Starks and Hobbs, who come in the pandemic era, and tonight was the first time Starks and Hobbs have lost a tag match in almost 2 years. Winter is coming 2020 against Cody and Darby was the last time, and that was their first tag match. They haven't dropped one since. They've been dominant, and they beat Keith and Swerve.
543 days.
What's that?
543 days.
Is that after Rampage was 541, right? And then it's 543 now?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think I remember them saying 541 on Rampage, yeah. So yeah, it's been, it's been.
I gave him that stat, by the way.
Oh, did you? Well, there you go. So you did. So the 3 eras of AEW, to have, like I was starting to say. So, it's the thought I was giving and talking about those guys and how great they did. But it's the 3, with the original with Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, who were on the very first show here, and then have now worked their way to the top in California guys, like you said. And then to have Starks and Hobbs, who came in the pandemic, both of them in different circumstances, but came together in cool ways, both of them. Starks on TV as a guy that was a pushed indie guy and that got a great opportunity and seized it. And then I was in the ring, and we didn't know. It was a tryout match basically. He was in the ring, and I said, I texted Mox, and I was like, I got the guy for what we want to do. I got the guy. And then he'd never met him or her. And it was John fucking saw it. And then Hobbs was on Dark, and killing it. And I remember I wanted somebody big to wrestle Darby on the show where, I think it was Saturday Night Dynamite where Brody won the title, I'm pretty sure. And it was Hobbs versus Darby, and wanted somebody to be credible. You don't want somebody you don't think is credible to be out there manhandling one of your top young stars, and he did. But obviously Darby came from underneath, as he's known to do, and he's very he persevered, but it showed a lot about Will to me. And then All Out was not long later, and he went the distance in the Battle Royal, and then saved John with a chair up on the stage when we were socially distanced with the fans, and Starks jumped him. So they're really important. And then getting
California too.
Yep, there you go. California, another California wrestler, Will Hobbs. That's a great point. And then, of course, with Swerve and Keith representing the post-pandemic era, two wrestlers that have come in. So you had the originals versus the pandemic era versus the post-pandemic era, and the three-way. I thought it was really cool. And I guess subconsciously I kind of thought about it, but when somebody said it like that, I was like, that's so cool. Going into the show, it made me feel even better about it. And the three-way match they had, the singles match was great, and then you could tell people really wanted the three big guys. So it was just a cool dynamic. So there's a lot of great stuff on the show, but it's going into California, like you said. Hobbs is another great one. The Young Bucks, I think, is a great example. Scorpio Sky, and certainly a bunch of great examples on the show, top to bottom, and you just named a bunch of good ones. So yeah, I think it's really important going into LA. Having the LA Times here is nice, and there are a lot of great California journalists like Dave, who used to write the California Wrestling Report.
Oh, geez, that's a long time ago. That is
it was before I was born, but
before everyone in this room was born.
I don't know about that. I'm looking around the room,
almost everyone.
But it's a pretty cool fact. And so there's a lot. I think it's just cool for us to go into LA and to go into the Forum, and also, frankly, to have the presence of the new management of Warner Brothers Discovery, the new bosses at TNT and TBS, and it's so cool. They're throwing us a big party, and that's a really cool thing for them to do, and for them to come to our show. It means a lot, and I'm just so excited about the future there. That's so cool. So thank you. I'm excited about California. Thanks.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for asking.
Okay, guys, really just
I'll give you a few more. Has anybody not gotten to ask a question all night?
Oh, I've asked.
Oh, Dave's asked 17 questions.
Yeah.
But you can ask. All right, but I'll get you. What's I want to get everybody, and then I'll ask Dave.
Is it in the back?
Eric from EWinsider.com.
Yes.
When formulating the shows, cutting something like the Casino Battle Royal that had been on previous Double or Nothings, is that hard to not have on a show to get more wrestlers on?
Well, would arguably get more wrestlers on, but I don't think it would spotlight people as much, and it's a longer match. Historically, a lot of entrances, and you talk about a match that could burn the crowd out on a night where we're trying not to do that. I mean, that's like doing 21 entrances isn't necessarily the way to go. Also, I didn't want to have somebody come out. The winner of the match could tip what was going to happen in the main event, and I didn't think the winner. I mean, there could have been somebody that would have been a good matchup for either person. I also thought it was probably better to have Darby and Kyle do a great match at the length they did, which is just a kick-ass hot match, versus sticking them in with 19 other people or anybody else. And the mixed trios wouldn't have made sense there. And the other matches on the card, I think all were good spots. You know, the Death Triangle and the House of Black, I think with Phoenix coming back, they deserved a really good trios match. They kicked ass versus like jamming the 6 of them in there with Darby and Kyle and a bunch of people. On All Out 2020, I didn't have the extra pay-per-view. And another reason did Nick leave? So I burned Nick out. Nick, another reason for the length of the show. I gave Martha as much time as she wanted to talk. And I told Martha, you can talk as long as you want to talk. And that could have been an hour, and we could have been here. So I extended the pay-per-view window also, not knowing about the Heat Celtics, even in case, because I knew Martha had and she's such an intelligent, eloquent woman, Dr. Martha Hart, and I knew we could have a great moment. And she wanted to. I wasn't going to force her out there to talk. I said, we can show you, if you want to do a promo. She really wanted to. I didn't know she wanted me to come with her until, like, literally Britt's music was playing and she'd won the thing and the crowd was chanting DMD after the Owen Hart victory roll reverse variation, which is great. By the way, I thought Dax worked with Britt and head coach Britt and Ruby, and I thought he did a great job. And then Dax, and we didn't see Dax and Cash until the end. And talk about Supercard of Honor. I mean, they're a huge part of Ring of Honor and a huge part of AEW. They've been a big part of some of the TVs, but there was a lot of stuff on the pay-per-view. They understood I didn't want to jam them into a situation. They could have worked a tag match, but again, there was already a lot on the show, and I think Dax saw a great, first of all, the Supercard of Honor. Who knows what's going to happen going forward? The big pay-per-views coming, Forbidden Door All Out, the future of Ring of Honor. So there's a lot of great opportunities, and also Dax was great working with Britt and Ruby, and then at the end was a really nice moment with them, with Punk, I think. So that's kind of what I was thinking. But yeah, so Nick, to your point, that's another thing. No, it's okay. It's a great point. And you're asking about the length. That was another thing when I did the length. Before I knew about Game 7, another thing I was considering, I was like, maybe I should extend the window because, gosh, Martha, it could be 20-minute applause. And it ended up being very long, but I could have let her talk all night if she wanted to. And I did. I said, stay, Martha, you literally can talk as long as you want. We have the window. We had the time. And, within 30, I mean, even if it had been 30 minutes, it probably would have been okay technically. So, and I wouldn't have stopped her. So that was another thing going in that I was considering. So when I first started to look at the window, that was one of my considerations, was we got Martha Hart, Dr. Martha Hart, and her family, Oj Hart and Athena Hart, is a big deal. And I didn't want to have to rush that. And I also, then, as Game 7, I was like, okay, there's a lot of reasons why I can play with the format, do something different than I've ever done, give the same amount of bell-to-bell, buy-in plus revolution, one more match, but I bet the match time was very similar overall. And there were probably some longer matches. There were only a couple matches. Were there only 2 matches that went 20 minutes tonight? Only or Anarchy in the Arena and the main event, right?
Yeah, because House of Black was 15.
There were a bunch of great hot 12, 15-minute matches on this paper. Yeah. And it was different, which is different pacing, and I think it was cool. And I think that was one thing people liked about the Ring of Honor pay-per-view. Like Swerve and Alexander had a great 13, 14-minute opener. There were some, Jay Lethal and Lee Moriarty was probably that length, and there were only a couple. Same with the Ring of Honor pay-per-view, right? There were only a couple really long matches like Dax and Cash versus the Briscoes, and then the main event were probably the only ones that went that length there too. So it was different playing with a 3-hour window. Man, it was a crazy story. I think on your podcast, did I give you the exclusive about listen to Andreas's podcast? I gave him the exclusive about the Samoa Joe story. It was one of the craziest that people hadn't heard. The travel story, you remember? You were there.
I was there, yeah.
It was nuts.
Yeah. When I saw Samoa Joe coming through, I was just like, what's happening?
But
really
up to that day, we were running around like crazy because, and I had, if people don't know, I'll tell you. I'm going to save it. I don't want to say he's getting the exclusive and then blow the whole story, but it's a good story. It was a crazy, it was a travel miracle and the miracle of private aviation, and some really cool pilots who thankfully helped me out on their day off. What else? Any more before we go?
Emily in the back has a question she hasn't asked yet.
Hi, I'm so sorry. Hi.
Hi, good evening, Tony. Thank you so much for an incredible evening. I'm Emily May with the Sportster, and CM Punk earlier today, this evening, mentioned some New Japan talent that he could potentially face in the ring. And so, Forbidden Door is coming up June 26th. There's a lot of talk about this collaboration between AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling. What can fans expect leading up to June 26th?
Fans can expect a great event on June 26th. I've been talking to Ghetto and his office extensively, and it's like a Crimson Tide situation. I was just reading this book about Don Simpson. I don't get much time to read, but when the Wi-Fi's off on the plane, going up and down every day, I usually get a little bit to read up and down the ascent and descent. So I was reading a book called High Concept about this, just what a weird, strange life Don Simpson led, and just these bizarre stories. And but it was a book I was reading, and so as I was thinking about this, and it's funny that you asked me. It was like he produced a movie called right before he passed away called Crimson Tide, and Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman, they both have missile keys to turn these in. It's a very different situation. But think of it like Ghetto and I both have a missile key. Like we're both going to try and I'm not going to try and force anything on him. He's not going to force anything on me. It's been a really good relationship the last year plus, over a year, that we've been doing matches and stuff together ever since we reunited Roppongi Vice on AEW Elevation. And it brought the Vice back with Rocky and Trent, and then have had Nagata come in and wrestle Mox, like I said, which was a real coup for us at the time, and all the great matches we've done since. There's going to be some awesome stuff. So June 26th at the United Center, expect an awesome Forbidden Door pay-per-view. We've always great pay-per-views in New Japan, have great stars and great wrestling, and I think they'll come together and it'll be something really special. I'm not at this time planning to do this length of pay-per-view, Nick. Even though it'll be shorter than a Wrestle Kingdom, it'll. I like you, Nick. I'm just kidding.
Because you set the expectation in 2019 for fans that you weren't going to do 5-hour shows.
I didn't do a 5. It wasn't. It was 4:37. And then,
Whatever. It's 12:15 in the morning. This is a long show.
we've been sitting here a long time. You're still enjoying it. Clearly, I see a smile on your face. You're having a good time.
The juxtaposition of what you told fans you wanted to do.
In 2019. Before I knew there was a Game 7 tonight or that Martha Hart was going to be doing a promo 3 years later.
My job is to find out if you're
I had no idea Dr. Martha Hart would ever come do a promo on the show, and God, I budgeted as much time as she needed. So there's 20 minutes of wrestling. 3 years ago, I didn't know that. So it's like, you're holding me to quotes from a long time ago, but in a good way.
That's my job.
You're holding me accountable, Nick, and that's why you're great at what you do.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to seeing you in your hometown of Chicago for the Forbidden Door.
Our hometown.
Well, it's one of mine, 5 hometowns.
I have 2.
What's your other one?
I'm from Houston.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, good. Well, Houston, you and I do not have a problem. We're good. What? Thank you.
I think that answers it.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad. But the Forbidden Door, expect in Los Angeles. We'll get this thing going. You already saw it, by the way. I'm sorry to. I'm not. Wrestle Kingdom's off and along. Have you ever seen Wrestle Kingdom? You watch Wrestle Kingdom? Okay, great. Okay, so a lot of people in my company won't watch New Japan, and I'm a big New Japan fan. I bet. Show of hands of who watches New Japan in here. Oh, Brian, you don't watch New Japan? You full of shit. So a lot of people in here watch New Japan. A lot of our fans probably haven't seen it. I'm gonna bet. So they're gonna get. They've seen some of the stars. I think we've already had great wrestlers. Some of the ones I mentioned. Ishii's been with us a few times and is great. So this is a more educated room than probably most wrestling rooms you're gonna get of fans. So I think we probably know more about some of these stars. We're gonna have to debut some of them on TV. It was cool to see Great O'Con and Jeff Cobb. Jeff Cobb, he had been gone for over 2 years, right? Over 2 years. And I really liked it. The way they came in, and obviously it did, leave things open-ended. I thought FTR and Roppongi Vice were having a great match. Roppongi Vice had tried to win the Ring of Honor belts for a long time. They won a lot of big matches. They beat the Young Bucks in the Ring of Honor. They won a lot of matches there. So I think they said this was like their 4th shot at the title, and they didn't really get a fair one. And they were having a really good match, and those guys came in and busted it up. So it sets up interesting things not only with AEW and New Japan, but also potentially with Ring of Honor and New Japan, who obviously have a lot of history together and have partnered. Was anybody at their Madison Square Garden show here? Yep. Yeah. A lot of people were, and yeah, that was I think one of the most successful shows Ring of Honor had done, and also a big debut at New Japan here. So I think we can do a better show, and that was I think they did a great sellout, a great crowd. I think we can do a better show than that, and have more involvement from big stars in New Japan, and also have, frankly, from the American side, even more star representation than that show had, which was a big success. This will be even bigger. And in line with what you've come to expect from AEW events, also New Japan. I won't beat Nick up about the show length question because it's a very fair question. But I think I will try to. It probably won't be the same thing as June 26th. I don't think the sports competition's there. What? I'm kidding.
Just keep going back.
But in a good way, in a loving way. And
I would rather you do this than bring up WWE with me.
Well, that's true. And then Dave brought up that he wrote for WWE, so we're just having a good time here. We're scatting.
I didn't
bring it up. You did, I think. Well, you brought up what they do backstage, which I think you're familiar with because you used to write there.
Yes, you mentioned that.
Okay, are we having a good time? All right. Anybody? Thank you. I'm sorry that. Hey, thanks.
We can talk
New Japan. Let's go. I've been watching it for 1 years. The first WCW pay-per-view I ever watched, which I watched 100 times. It was 14 matches, everyone. If Super Bowl one, Nick. Super Bowl one, I've watched it 100 times, and the main event is Fujinami versus Flair, and it wasn't. But then I went back after the live pay-per-view. I had to see the match before, and I watched the pay-per-view they did, which was a WCW New Japan pay-per-view in Japan, which was a great pay-per-view. I thought the Flair Fujinami match there was probably better, and I thought the Hase and Sasaki versus the Steiners is one of the best matches ever in WCW, and hopefully we can have that kind of same high standard that they set with that WCW show there. Again, was it Akira Nogami versus Liger?
Yes.
And then Arn and Barry Windham wrestled Saito, and
Oh man.
I remember they hit that Arn ducked and
It might
Barry
have
hit
been
Flair.
Hashimoto, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it might have been the big guys. It was a great show, and that I think we can hopefully now that's been over 30 years, and that would be the standard I would love to live up to. Starrcade '95 had some good stuff, but it wasn't just about that. New Japan versus WCW, they had the best of 7, which was real cool. But then also there was the 3-way for the world title, and Flair and Sting and Lex, and then Macho Man. So there was a lot of non-New Japan story. This will be, I think it'll be good. It'll be true to AEW, true to New Japan. Thanks for asking.
The match was Arn and Barry versus Masaito and Chono.
Thank you, Saito and Chono. Thanks, of course. Yeah, and then I learned about Chono being the protege of Luthez, who we talk about wrestling online. People are like, remember when you couldn't go online and hear from wrestling? I talked to 1995, I was 12 years old. I would have regular conversations with Brian Pillman Sr., DDP, who's my friend now, and the late Luthez when he was writing the book Hooker, and told me a lot. He told me Bill Watts used to carry a gun around, actually. When I was 12 years old, and I was a big fan of Mid-South Wrestling. And he was like, yeah, Bill Watts wouldn't put up with any shit. He had a gun. No, I trust me, I do not. I learned a lot from those experiences, and I think the online wrestling community has been a thing a lot longer than people realize. So with that, it's been a great time. Anybody have anything that I have anybody I didn't talk to that came all the way, wants to ask a question? Yes, please. Sure, you too. Yes, I saw you. Yes, sir.
We'll get Phil. Let Phil go first.
Thanks, Phil.
Phil Lindsay, Bleacher Report, Tragic Podcast. So of course, Athena debuted tonight. I know some people want to see her debut as the Joker, so I just wanted to ask, how long did you know she was signing, and what went into making a decision to do it tonight?
Thank you for asking. Really appreciate it. I thought that it would be a great debut. I'd love to have big pay-per-view debuts in different circumstances. Obviously, the way Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole debuted, it was a very different circumstance in some ways, but on the other hand, when Stokely became available, it was like, I can take one big debut and get 2 debuts across in one thing, but I didn't know he was coming. I knew she was. And there was a situation that I thought was a clear, starting with Jade and Anna, which I thought, the Jade's, best TV match probably is still, I think, Jade versus Anna on Rampage in DC in the main event. And so I thought it would be a really fitting rematch, but also set up many matches down the line. And I thought at the end it would be really cool if you had Statlander come back. And originally I wasn't planning for Statlander to be in the tournament, but she did a great job as a substitute. Had an awesome match on Rampage a couple weeks ago with Red Velvet, and then another awesome match with Ruby. And clearly the crowd was really behind her, but I already knew that I thought this would be a great spot to set up Athena debuting a 3-on-3 kind of standoff with the baddies, Jade, Red Velvet, and Kiera Hogan, squaring off against Anna Jay after a match. Chris Statlander came out, faced off everybody. She was ready to take on all of them, and Red Velvet, she's got a real axe to grind with, not just because of their long friendship and the way Red Velvet stabbed. Are you okay?
Oh yeah, I'm good.
Okay, good. And then the way Red Velvet kind of stabbed her in the back after she got caught in the thing with Layla, and it's really unfortunate what happened with Layla in the injury because she was really rolling. I thought our last pay-per-view, the first match of the show, the buy-in, kicked ass. And so I really appreciate you asking that because I think it's a really good thing to do. I was really excited to have Athena debut here, and I didn't necessarily think it would make as much sense as the Joker because the Joker was Britt Baker's opponent, and of course now we saw Britt Baker, I think it was a great moment, and to crown a king and a queen with the original Queen of Hearts, the all-time Queen of Hearts, the real Queen, Martha Hart, Dr. Martha Hart. So I thought it would be really cool to have Athena debut in that context across from the baddies. I didn't know Stoke was coming until today. Like I said, I never met him or talked to him, but it worked out perfect. And I had in the back of my mind, if it did work out, I thought that would be a cool scene, but I didn't know, and I thought we could have brought him in later. But But if he wanted to come, but he was definitely somebody I had in mind. It was cool to have him come in and have it work out like that today, though. It was good, cool, hell of a lucky break for us. So, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, I think that's a wrap. Everyone.
Great. Oh, would you have one more? This is my last one. That's my last one.
Okay, well, Tony, obviously thank you for your time and thank you for doing this. And let's give a round of applause for everybody in PR. Thank you guys for sending something. This is awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. And by the way, I hope everyone had a good experience taping this for the first time. And I heard that was bad for you, and a bunch of you said that sucked, so I tried to make it so you could. So I hope it worked out.
Thank you for being accommodating.
Sure.
I wanted to ask you something that you mentioned a few weeks ago back on an AEW show on March 23rd in Austin. So I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, so feel free to correct me if you want to. But you came out and you had mentioned how special and important the city of Boston was to you. And you had mentioned something about how vital South by Southwest was to you as far as the formation of the AEW. So I wanted to ask you, what about the event, gave you the inspiration of, forming the company potentially? And, another question about South by Southwest, if you're a fan of it, would AEW post anything there?
Oh man, did we lose? Oh, he's right there. Hey, we never know. We've had great crowds there. Every time we've gone, they've been really hot. So to start with, they've been great. Every time we went, we went back there. That was our second show back on the road, and it was Fighter Fest night 1. The Darby, you were there. That's awesome. Darby Ethan Page coffin match was a great match and a great night. And thank you for asking. It's a great question, and I'll give you the last of my long answers, and hopefully, but it's a memorable one. And it relates to somebody you know. I don't know if you know this story, Dave. So first of all, Austin, Texas. It was a true story. I told CM Punk. Was it CM Punk Dustin? What was it? The match in Austin that CM Punk.
It was CM Punk and Dax.
Dax, that's right. So I told Punk, this is one of the best crowds we have. And I went and told the crowd right before, if you remember, I was like, I have a friend in the back, and I told him this is one of the best crowds we have, and he's about to come out here. And then you all started chanting CM Punk, and it was about as perfect as the crowd warm-up can go. Because I didn't even say anything, and you guys started chanting it. And then it was what I wanted. And then the show went live, and 1.2 million people were watching me right then, and it was like CM Punk, CM Punk, CM Punk. So you guys were awesome again and again and again. You always have been. One of the best Dynamites we ever did was 3 weeks before Revolution. I actually flew, it was great. I didn't know you guys had a direct flight to London. I learned. I flew out to London on British Airways, and then flew back to Atlanta for another one of the best Dynamites ever. And South by Southwest, I was on a panel with some of the most distinguished people in pro sports and just sports media, and the CEO of my company was moderating, and there were people up there that included Nate Silver and Daryl Morey, who was a friend and a mentor to me, and he was the GM of the Rockets at the time, and he's now the GM of the Philadelphia 76ers. He's a really smart person. He's always been very nice to me. Now that he doesn't have Ben Simmons on the Nets now, right?
Yep.
So when I edited off the show and Ben Simmons got booed. I told him I would. He said, I heard he texted me. He's like, I heard there was a Ben Simmons thing on the show. And I was like, don't worry, Daryl. There won't be on Friday. So I was on there with Daryl and Nate Silver and Rafe Anderson, the CEO of True Media and the founder, and co-founder, along with Jeff Stern. And Jeff Stern and Rafe Anderson. So they were on stage with me, and I saw Chris Nowinski in the back. And Chris asked me a question about safety and has now worked with the NFL and got to know him better. But he asked me a question, and that's how I first got to know Chris. He asked me a question at this big panel of guys, and I saw in the back, it was like back where Greg's sitting back there with more people in the room. And it was at a private event. Jim, the Raptor House. Jim, does anybody know from Boston? Sports is pathetic. Raph, you might know. Jim, the Raptor House. Roma, EC Roma. Jim, what a great guy. That's pathetic of me. I'm sorry it's so late, guys. He invited me, and Nowinski was in the back, and then I talked to him after, and we built a real lasting friendship, and that was kind of the first person I ever knew that I watched on TV as a pro wrestler that I met in person, because like I said, I talked to Pillman, DDP, Luthez, different people online, and they were really nice. DDP gave me tickets to a Nitro I couldn't use because I was a kid and I had school, and I didn't live in Florida back then, and they were great tickets. And we used to have conversations about psychology of wrestling. I was 12 years old, and the fact that he even would talk to people. He took fan feedback before people did that, and on Twitter and social media, Instagram, and he did it on AOL dial-up. And that's just probably a morsel of how he got to where he is because of the hard work and that he did beyond what other people did, right? And So with Austin, I was up there, and that's how I made the connection with Chris. And then then it's been such a special town for AEW. And like I told Punk, I said, this is going to be like one of the greatest things. And I told the crowd, and you guys made it. You were great for Punk and Dax. Thank, I would have, 52 weeks I wrote on the year. Sometimes I do forget things. But that was one of the best matches we've had on TV and one of the best moments. So you guys have been great. And that was the kind of formative moment for me in the wrestling business in early 2014, right? That would be like February, and then the 2018, I was in a position 4 years later to have a conversation with the president of TNT and TBS that probably led to more so than anything else, the creation of the company. So I love Austin. Thank you.
Now, would you consider hosting events in South by, because there's a lot of music, a lot of films going on?
We should look at that. Maybe there's something there. Maybe and it may not even have to be the TV. It could be something else. You know, there could be shows. That's something I've looked at is how to expand our portfolio of events because we have a great roster and all over the country, different places. There could be something there. Sure, we haven't really gotten that far.
I mean, you've got a mogul on the roster that's pretty good that you probably utilize, right?
Who's that? Swerve?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great. I think we can all agree about that. He'd be tremendous. He is an entertainment mogul. We have a couple moguls. I think there's a few musicians, and he would be above all else. So, absolutely. You know, Chris, obviously a pretty prominent musician too, who's charted, and Brody King. But obviously, Swerve is a mogul. So those would be great choices. We could totally. And Max Caster, by the way. Yo. Yo. All right, well, it's been a great night, and with that, I think I've kept you long enough. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, seriously, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, text me. I'm pretty sure we'll see each other since we'll be in the media section together, so. Is that my media class? Oh, no, that's.